Hello, and welcome to Revamped, a rewatch podcast that revisits my top favorite shows and movies. I'm your host, Brandon Alexander, joined by my co-host,
Courtney Autumn.
Venture with us as we set our sights on the infamous Hellmouth to cover 90s cult classic, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Follow along from the beginning, spoiler-free, as Courtney views the show for the first time and I revisit the series for new takes and a fresh perspective on its narrative.
Each season, every episode, in order, we will follow Buffy Summers and her friends to examine their character development, the show's underlying themes, along with its major story arcs, all while engaging in conversations, sharing our own authentic thoughts and feelings to what's unfolding before us.
So sharpen your stakes, load your crossbows, and join us as we explore the supernatural world of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Let's get into the episode.
Hello, everyone. Post-production Brandon coming in here to just give a message to preface the fact that, unfortunately, halfway through this, a little bit more quarter way through, Leah's internet connection, as you'll hear, was just not the greatest, and she ended up not being able to get back into our session the right way. So we concluded the episode with myself, Courtney, Tabby, and Sarah, which made it to the end, but just wanted the guys to know ahead of time that Leah, unfortunately, was not here for the whole thing. But we still appreciate her coming along to do as much as she could and watching the episode and all that stuff. But unfortunately, we lost out on her takes on Kick His Ass, few other points, the ending, and then obviously the final slays and final moments. But it was in gratitude for being here, and I appreciate you guys for being here in general, speaking to Becoming Buffy. But yeah, I'll let you guys go ahead and get into the episode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Revamped. Today we are covering our season finale for Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 2, Episode 22. Becoming Part 2. This episode aired May 19th, 1998, written and directed by Joss Whedon. We have Leah, Tabby, and Sarah from Becoming Buffy podcast here with us.
Woo!
Hey!
Thanks for coming to do the episode with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having us.
This is like an episode that it's hard to say no to.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, well, of course, not just revamped, but I love this episode, so I'm happy to be here.
Give me Buffy and Angel and the happier early seasons. I'm like, yeah, I'll come back.
The happier.
Hey, coming out of season 6 and 7, this is definitely happier.
I know, right? And I love stuff like that. That type of stuff is safe to say because we do breadcrumb Courtney over here, so we'll live like little
Poor
stuff
Courtney.
Like that.
I know.
I got like a
do
pile
something
of
out.
breadcrumbs this high right now.
Just as we did with having Prophecy Girls podcast on for the season 1 finale, Prophecy Girl, it just made sense. And I knew going into season 2, I wanted you ladies to be our guests for the season 2 finale. You're becoming Buffy, and this is becoming part 2. The name title does it justice. So I'm just happy you guys were able to join us. Fun fact on that, I asked Sarah if they would join us when we were wrapping up season 1 before Prophecy Girl even aired all of 6 months ago. So this has been a long time coming. my corny joke. I'm glad y'all laughed. Good cue. So most people probably know who you are if they clicked on this episode, or listeners from your podcast over to listen, or most likely have heard me mention your pod a lot on our pod. But for anyone who might not know you, I'll catch you up. Becoming Buffy podcast, its hosts consist of 3 sisters, Leah, Tabby, and Sarah, who have been breaking down every episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer since premiering with season 1, episode 1 back in September of 2020. Now, 5 years later, you're in the 7th and final season, 7 episodes away from completing the original series. And on top of that, Sarah also co-hosts a Buffyverse spinoff podcast covering Angel called Investigating Angel with fellow Buffy fan and friend Leah. Here we go. Leah. Hey, Leah. And you two are just a few episodes away from wrapping up that series as well. So between Buffy and Angel, you're truly nearing the end of the full journey through the Buffyverse. How does that feel getting ready to close up this chapter after spending the last 5 years so deeply immersed in the stories? And beyond that, how has this journey impacted your relationship as sisters?
Good
Ooh,
questions.
good questions.
You want to start off, Sarah, since you have 2 podcasts you're wrapping up?
I'm tired listening to you talk about all this stuff. I was like, yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's a little like, I think for me, I'm still very much in the trenches. Like Tabby, Lee, and I have stopped recording. We're finished. So for Tabby and Leah, I think it's probably a little bit more like of a closure because they're done and stuff. I'm still very much immersed in it because I'm still releasing the episodes. We're about like halfway through the season in season 7, and I do all the social media and stuff. So it's like, even though we're done recording, still in it, but I don't know. It has been so fun. I think so much more of an appreciation for the show doing it the past 5 years. Also, it's been crazy the amount of Buffy stuff that has dropped. We have the Audible series. We have like Juliet Lando's podcast, which I know you guys know intimately. And then we have all of that other stuff that has happened in the past 5 years, now the continuation. So it's just weird that all that happened while we were podcasting. So it feels very weird being done with the podcast because it feels like the Buffyverse in a lot of ways is waking up again. So it's like, I think we're never going to leave it. I think it's always going to be a part of us.
Yeah, well, you didn't answer the sibling one, Sarah. Did you?
I didn't. I wanted to leave one for you.
Okay. I was like, did you?
Y'all
I
can
didn't want to
answer
take it
that
all.
communally.
Just kidding.
Yeah. I was like, actually, I hate them and we're never podcasting again.
Just like purposely.
I
omitting
intentionally
that.
answer it.
No, yeah. Oh my goodness. I feel like when we first started our podcast, the fandom was so dead. We really just did like a shot in the dark. I mean, other than what was that really popular podcast? Like the only one at the time.
Buffering.
Yeah. I feel like during that time, it was like the only big one. There was some like small ones popping up around the same time as us, but it just felt like it was such like a dead fandom. Like I just don't remember ever interacting with anyone from the fandom. It just felt like something only us siblings could connect with. And then when we lived together, we really connected with it. And it's been such a whirlwind. It feels like no time has passed and 15 years has passed at the same time. It's felt like a part-time job on my end, but I can't even imagine all the stuff Sarah has gone through. But it has always kind of felt like such a small thing between Sarah, Leah, and I, at least from my perspective. So every now and again when I hear about, like, Brandon, when you're talking about like being a fan for years, I'm like, that is great. I can't even wrap my mind around that. That's like insane. And so like sweet and humbling. I just always forget that people listen. So it's just always felt like such a sister thing. And I feels like we just talk about the show. Yeah. Like I sit here and then I never viewed it as something super, like, I feel like as soon as I let myself think people are listening, I'm like, oh, I would get in my head about it and be like, I can't run the episodes. Like, that's terrifying. So I don't know. I viewed it very casually with us talking about it. That's not to say I didn't put in a lot of work, writing down and breaking down each episode, but I viewed it very much like that. And it was a very healthy place. So it's very sweet to hear when people are like, oh yeah, like I listen, like Tony does that. And I'm like, Mayward, you've listened this week? He'll tell me that. He'll like damn that to me. I'm like, what do you mean you listened this week? That's crazy. So it's been such a fun journey. It's been exhausting, but so fun. And I guess I'll hold off. Wait, Sarah, why are you holding off about the second answer? Are we doing that
I was
today?
going to let you
I'm like,
guys
am I
off
doing
each other.
that?
That's how sisters
Okay.
go.
I felt like we were all kind of on the same page, but I did wanted to say one of the things that has been so cool has been the community. Like, obviously, like, we're friends now, Brandon. Like, we follow each other on our like personal accounts, and then we also like DM and we talk about Buffy things, but we talk about life things. And the same with Tony and Leah. Like, Leah and I met because of the podcast, and now we're friends and we see each other like several times a year. So it's been like that community that has developed, and that was our goal because we started it during COVID. So it was like we're all starved for connection. And that's, I think, when the fandoms really kind of blew up again. And I don't think the Buffy fandom was ever fully dead, but it definitely had a resurgence during the COVID years for sure. So it's like, not only is it like us three get to connect every week, but we get to meet new fun people like you guys, which has just been the cherry on top of everything else.
Totally.
It's so weird because first of all, I think coming to the end of this podcast, I feel such a sense of accomplishment. Which is so funny because it's like, oh, really would have sat down. But it's more of just like, we started this podcast as something that was just kind of like, we were all in the same room and like bought some equipment off Amazon with like this crazy little like doodad thing. And then it was just kind of like, okay, we're all gonna get these funny little notebooks and we're all just gonna talk. And it was just kind of like, okay. And then it turned into, we were literally doing it like 5 hours a day, and I was like, oh my god, I think I'm gonna die. Like, I don't know if I can do this. And then it was like, somehow I felt like we had been doing it for 5 years and we were still on Teacher's Pet. Um,
Because y'all had to
but
record it 6 times.
Yeah.
no, and to this day, you could not pay me to re-record that episode again.
Yeah.
Like, you could not pay me. But that being said, I feel such a sense of accomplishment because obviously, even from like a world standpoint, things have changed so much in the past 5 years. But even on a personal standpoint, it's like when we started this podcast, I was still in college, lived in a different state, was working a different job. It's just like my whole life looks completely different. And so it's so fun to have something to look back on and really have this time capsule of 5 years of my life. I forget that people also can look in on that time capsule.
For real.
Yeah, a humbling experience.
I will never listen to those old recordings ever again.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I don't even like my voice, so the fact that people have been hearing my voice for 5 years is like, oh my god, put me in a mental asylum.
And still listening too.
Yeah, I think in my mind, I'm like, people come for Sarah and then they just skip my parts.
That's not true. People come
Not
for
at all.
Leah.
You're
We
like,
all know
I like
this.
Sarah's analytics, but you're my favorite sister. Like, to hear what you have to say and how you call out people. Like,
Pretty popular.
you know how
And I think the thing
hardcore I
is
was
that-
on the side defending you back in the day whenever that guy was like leaving that awful comment on you. I was like, fuck you. I was like,
The
Leah's my
infamous
bitch. No, shut the fuck up talking about she can't read and all this other shit. Like, no.
I think it's just like, it's so, first of all, that's very nice, but it's just so weird. I think it's always just kind of felt like a FaceTime call between like Tabby, Sarah, and I. I think that's also why Sarah gets very mad at me, because I forget that it's not a FaceTime call and I'm like getting up in the middle of a sentence and going and pooping for 20 minutes, or like I forget
We have
to
to pause the
mute
recording
myself.
regularly.
She's
I'm like,
we'll just
we're
like,
like,
Leah.
oh, she's pooping
I like
again,
forget to
and we
mute
have
myself,
pause.
and I'm like literally eating into the mic, and Sarah's like, "You can't talk, you're literally chewing." And I'm like, "Oh my god, sorry."
Is this stuff I clip out or leave in?
No, you can leave it all. It doesn't
Leave it,
matter.
yeah.
But you know, and I don't blame Sarah at all. Like, it's all so valid. Like, argue 5, but it's just been so fun because I feel like it's kind of like, in a sense of the way that you bond with people that you go to school with is a bond that you really can never explain to people, because you're seeing these people all the time and you're building these memories purely just being in each other's lives. And obviously sometimes those relationships stay and they don't, or whatever. So I'm not saying like, who's to say if we're going to remain close? It's more of like,
Wow.
we have this kind of time period where so much life has happened in 5 years, and it's like every week Sarah and Tabby have heard it literally, like, first being like, oh my god, this happened, or this happened, or this happened, or this happened, and like, you don't
all
even
cried.
recognize how quickly you become intertwined in each other's lives. And I think as siblings, becoming. But I think as siblings, it's so easy to just kind of be like, oh my gosh, yeah, I talked to them a few months ago, or like whatever, because you're so comfortable. But the podcast has really enabled all of us to get comfortable with not going months without talking. Did I phrase that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And that's something that like both me and Courtney have voiced on the podcast, is our connection has grown so much. Me and her used to, we're best friends. We've been best friends for 15 years, but we have little
We're
small
basically like
periods
siblings.
where we would like, you know,
Yeah.
there'd be weeks where we might have sent a random text message, but we didn't know really crazy what was going on. And we'd have, you know, 4 to 6 to sometimes longer months in between of us not seeing each other, because we have 90 minutes of distance in between us travel wise. But now that we see each other on a weekly basis and we have this, we're now at the end of season 2, we've grown closer. We've been able to hang out more. And then we also use that opportunity while we're recording to like stay an extra day with each other and like go do something together and all that stuff. So it just really helps. That's why I wanted to ask that question to you guys, to see how that's changed your, you know, relationship as sisters, because you obviously grew up together and stuff. So you have known each other a lot longer than me and Courtney have known each other. So it's just, it's interesting how Buffy kind of connects you, and it gives you the revisitation to know each other, to like spend time with one another, and like both be passionate about a show, but then also show up in each other's lives. And you get that opportunity to actually say like, hey, my fucking AC is out and I'm upset with this. Like, whereas, you know what
Lord
I mean?
knows they've heard it all.
Yeah. You guys, I mean, whoever's listening right now would be baffled to know how many times, like, you're listening to a podcast not knowing that, like, one of us almost every single recording had a mental breakdown before we recorded it. Mainly either Leah or I. Sarah is like a stronghold when it comes to her emotions. I think she maybe cried twice before recording like a podcast episode. Whereas I cry all the time, and it felt like there was always something happening. You guys would be so surprised. We'd have this most intense conversation beforehand, and then all of a sudden we're just like, okay, and then we just record. I feel like that's just such a sibling thing. Or we'd have an argument before, or we'd have other trauma that doesn't involve us three, but we're thrown into it with other family stuff that would last years, and then something big would happen, and then we would be all like crying, talking about it for like 2 hours before we even record, and then we would record. Like there was one time I think we talked for 3 hours about something, just going through so many different emotions and everything, and then we went and recorded for like 2.5 hours. So it's just like it sometimes, and this is like it was a weekly thing where we would talk an hour before we recorded. That was like the base time, because it was also a time where we could kind of sketch out a period of time where we're talking, all three of us together.
Yeah, we had to be intentional.
I see Leah pretty frequently because we live in the same area, but we're also both really busy. So I have a hard time nailing down to even like see Leah individually. And that's me with like every person in my life. It's really hard to just like, I mean, that's
Same.
just how it is.
Yeah.
And so when all of us were recording, it was like genuine. It's not even a joke, like a full hour before we were recording, we're just catching up. So this podcast, to say it lightly, genuinely changed our relationship dynamic, like truly. Because I mean, with our older brother David and Sarah, there's several years in between, at least me, and then several years after that with Leah in the dynamic. And so
the age gap.
Yeah, and Sarah got married right after college and then moved to a different state. So there's a lot of fundamental years where she wasn't physically here. And I think because that, like, I mean, we were very much lower middle class, so I didn't really have a phone until I was like 16, and even still then it wasn't like an iPhone. So I just was also horrible with, as a young girl, being like, I need to check up on my older sister. Like, I just wasn't thinking about that. So there was just a lot of intimate parts of our relationship that were missing. Obviously we loved each other and we saw each other a couple times a year, but there was like individual relationships and intimacy that was missing, and this podcast genuinely changed that. So to say it lightly, like, this podcast really did change our relationship and our lives truly for the better is an understatement. But again, it also felt like we weren't really doing a job. Some days it did. I went and I was like, I'm really tired, or I'm going through something, and like having to podcast for 3 hours does not sound ideal. But then you'd sit down and then we'd talk for an hour, and then it was like nothing. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Cool. That was like perfectly said. Y'all summed it up perfectly. And I knew that y'all would chime in together and like create that. So that's perfect. So my little thank you message to Becoming Buffy. When I first messaged Becoming Buffy on Instagram to introduce myself, I called it a total fangirl moment to Sarah when she replied, because I was already such an admirer of your podcast, and I loved the thoughtful, fresh takes you brought to the show and the way you dove deep into the themes, arcs, and characters with so much care and insight. Becoming Buffy quickly became and still remains my favorite Buffyverse podcast I've listened to, and I've listened to more than a handful out there, like a lot, you guys, like at least 10 of them, and still listening to some of the other ones, but I had to quit. You all genuinely inspired me to finally create Revamped. Just seeing the joy that you had making your show together, the fun that you brought to it, and the love you clearly have for Buffy made me want to be a part of that too. When Sarah posted about sending in final messages for your season 7 recap, I was going to submit one, but I knew we'd be talking face to face here just a few weeks later, and I really wanted to say to you directly, thank you to all three of you for the hard work, the insight, and all the joy that you brought to this fandom and myself. It's been such a gift to be on this journey alongside you as a listener. I've loved every moment, learning and laughing along with you. And while I'm honestly a little sad that you're reaching the end, I'm also so proud of you and excited, because it's not really the end. There's the reboot, and I know this won't be the last time that we get to invite you guys over with us to guest. So personally, I want to give gratitude for the support from your podcast as well, because Sarah has been like a huge support, shouting out to us, especially with the drama and all that, just the awareness that you've helped raise for us on different levels, and also forming a growing friendship with you, Sarah, since we chat pretty much on some level weekly now. It has been an unexpected and meaningful part of this whole podcasting experience. That's something I've come to be most grateful for, connecting with other Buffy fans, other content creators, and having this outlet to share our love for the show. So I appreciate that. And I have to note that out of now listening to almost every episode of y'all's series, between the both of them, season 3 of Buffy was my favorite that y'all did. I don't know why, and it's exciting because we're about to embark on the season 3 journey.
Oh, so exciting.
When we wrap this episode, we're like getting into it, you know. So that I wanted to say to you guys because I felt that in for a long time. But
thank you so
That's
much. That's so
so
sweet.
I called it.
I know.
We did.
No, it was sweet. It was. I loved it. I know. And I can't tell you like how meaningful it was. And I think I told Tabby and Leah about this when you messaged me and were like, "Hey, like I've been listening to you for like 2 years, and we're starting our own Buffy podcast, and you guys are like a big part of that." I was like, "Oh my gosh, like what?"
Mm-hmm.
And I love that because like I was inspired by other Buffy podcasts too. And I think sometimes Tony and I were talking about it. Shout out to, all Browns, no brains. But we were talking about how like sometimes there can be like a little bit of like a competitiveness, especially when you're like starting out something. And also there's like that vulnerability of like I'm putting something out there and I want people to listen. And sometimes there's this insecurity of, oh, they're going to go listen to other people. And it's easy to compare yourself. But I think like one of the beautiful things in doing podcasting and just instead of being like, oh my gosh, like I'm feeling insecure, leaning into supporting other people who are doing their own thing and having their own space. And in doing so, you end up not being so insecure because you see a person behind the screen. You start having friendships. And what it does is it allows you to go, oh my gosh, we all have our own little spot. There's enough
space
room
for all
everybody.
of us. Yeah.
And like I know that sounds so like cliche, but it truly like it's real. And it's been so fun seeing you guys like find your own space and come into your own as podcasters. I've been listening along to you guys and like you guys obviously had a very rough start with everything with your name and everything, but you guys have like handled that with so much grace. And then just watching you guys like come into your own as podcasters, like obviously you've taken inspiration from us and Prophecy Girls and others, but you guys have really made it your own thing. And I love that for you. And so like I am very excited to see how far you guys go and how big you guys get, because I think you guys are already like doing so well, but I think you guys have the potential to be just absolutely incredible and just go so far. So at least I should speak for myself, but I'm going to be following along your guys' journey, whether I'm on or not. I will be cheering you guys on.
Agreed.
And I will gladly come on for anything you want me to. And I'm really excited to like dialogue with you guys and other podcasters once the continuation does hopefully come out.
Yeah.
Like we all get to experience
Like
that
a little
together.
family, I feel like, and I love it. I forced myself into this family. Like when I've messaged Prophecy Girls, I'm about to be friends with Prophecy Girls. I'm about to be friends with Becoming Buffy. I'm about to be friends with this person. Like,
but looks what happened when you did, Like,
and I'm just gonna keep reaching out to people and like making these connections. I love it.
Do it.
As you should.
Cool. I guess that's a good time to really get into Becoming Part 2. So in the season 2 finale, with Giles captured by Angelus, Buffy is forced to evade the Sunnydale police, who believe she's responsible for the attack at the school and the death of Kendra. Meanwhile, Angelus extracts the information he needs from Giles and successfully awakens 𝑾𝒊𝒕𝒉. As the world stands on the brink of destruction, Buffy forms an alliance with Spike to stop Angelus, while unbeknownst to her, a hospitalized Willow makes one final attempt to restore Angel's soul. Guest star for the episode, I did not mention him last episode, and I felt so bad because I normally don't miss stuff like that, but Max Perlich plays Whistler, so I feel like I make amends by bringing him up this episode because he's in both parts. And then we have the special guest star Robia Lamorte as Jenny Calendar reprising her role, which was really cool to see. So this is hands down my favorite single episode of the entire series, without question. I said that last episode, but specifically part 2 is my favorite Buffy episode of the series, with another one neck and neck. And I know you three know exactly which one that is because like you have to. It's the only one that holds the same type of power that this one does and evokes the same type of emotions for good reason. But in this episode, it just gets to the heart of who Buffy is. It shows us what she's really made of, what she's called to do. And it's such a strong example of her strength, her morals, and her decision making, and honestly, just her power. She's faced with the most impossible choice and she makes it. She chooses the world and she steps into her calling and becomes the Slayer fully and completely, no matter what it cost her. And I always find that to be devastating. I remember watching this when I was like 10 years old and I was just sobbing by the end, like disgusting sobbing. Like at 10 years old, that's hardcore, like, and I still cry every time. Like, Sarah, did you cry last night when you watched this? Like,
oh, definitely.
You have to tear up when she's like saying goodbye and it's awful, but I felt so bad for her. And I remember thinking it was so unfair that she had to go through this. Like, why does she have to be the one to make this sacrifice? But even as a kid, I kind of got it, but really did get more wrapped into, oh, she's losing Angel and being more focused on that that tragedy and arc versus Buffy as an individual. And now as an adult who's watched the episode, I don't even know how many times, like, because I've seen this one probably most out of all of them, I just see it differently. As an adult, I understand now what it means in the bigger picture. It's not just about saving the world, it's about Buffy becoming who she's meant to be. You can see that shift happening across the season early on, and even into season 2, she still treats being the Slayer like a burden, like it's a job she didn't ask for. But after meeting Kendra, something clicks and she starts to treat it like a duty. And by the time we get here, she's no longer just doing the job, she is the Slayer. And for me as an adult now, that's where the empowerment really lands. Giles is out of the picture, she's lost her support system. Whistler literally tells her, all you have is yourself, and that's exactly what she leans on. She stands alone and makes the hardest call and still does the right thing, and that to me is strength. And this is the part I start to tear up, because like Buffy has always made me feel very empowered to just live, you know what I mean? And like that's the stuff I get from the show that makes me love her so much. Like Buffy is my favorite heroine of all time. There's so much more happening in the episode too. Willow pulling off the spell successfully is such a big moment. It's the start of her stepping into her real power, and I love that we get to see that start here as well. The score and the music, just as I stated last episode, hits at all the right parts. And the final sword fight between Buffy and Angelus, it's so fucking good. Like visually, emotionally, all of it. I call it like a visual orgasm because it's one of the best fights. It's just intense. It's tragic. Beautifully done. I could watch that fight on a loop, and I probably have. Me and my sister, I was telling Courtney last episode, we used to like rewind it and like literally start back from the beginning of Becoming and rewatch the series. Like back to back. We'd watch it 6 times in one day because we were at home for summer break or whatever. But so like the fact that Spike teams up with Buffy here, that adds a whole extra layer, and I love how that dynamic plays out. It's unexpected but makes total sense in the moment, and it's just really fun to watch. But that's why I love this episode and how I tie it all together. The way the season's built up to this point is really tight, and all the little moments, all the breadcrumbs, they've all been settling up to this one whole time. And looking back, you can really see it. It's just so satisfying, and every beat lands for this episode and for the season. So I'll express more as we walk through, but that's kind of like what I have as an opening expression. So I'm going to pass my mic over to Courtney now so you can talk about Becoming Part 2.
Finally, because we didn't. We did a good job not discussing a lot of it, which is new for us. But I will say something we did touch base on, which is obviously like the title of the episode becoming so like tenfold, because it's not just like Buffy becoming, it's like a part of Angel's becoming, a part of Willow's becoming. Like you said, like so many kind of characters are falling into this new space, I guess. And yeah, for me, it was just like this rite of passage kind of deal for Buffy, where it's like her identity is lost. She lost her home. She lost her love. She lost her friends. She lost everything by the end, you know, and it's just kind of like this thing that I keep experiencing along the way through all the seasons, where she almost gets to this place where she can almost have normalcy, or almost have something for herself, or almost have happiness, and then it's just like stripped away from her just as quickly. And it's torturous, you know, it's torturous to watch, and that's how I felt by the end. It was just like between Giles literally getting tortured and then the undertone of torture with Buffy's experience through it all, it was just really heartbreaking and sad. But it was a testament to who she is by the end, because she, you know, she's still moving onward, and who knows what the fuck that means, but she's still standing and she's still going into the next chapter of her life regardless of what's happened. And that's just kind of like who she is in summary. So it spoke so huge on all of that, and just like I said, like the rite of passage into her journey, into her character. And I'm excited to see what happens next.
What did you know about this episode prior to it? Like, is this your first time fully watching it, or did you watch this or know about it beforehand?
No, I don't. I never know anything usually. The only episodes I've watched with Brandon before we even started the podcast was 2 episodes. Is that right?
We watched Welcome to the Hellmouth and The Harvest, because we went to New York to do the Buffy prom, like back in April of last year, not this year. And I was like, well, you don't know anything about Buffy, so I got to make you watch the first 2 episodes. Yeah. So we watched that. And then since it was the prom that the thing we went to was themed after, I was like, well, I'll make you watch the prom, because there's not too much given away in that. You know what I mean? So she doesn't like, she's like me, like sometimes like with certain things, if you watch it the one time, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, especially if it's not something you're invested in. So
don't
she'll
remember
probably
any of
like
it, really.
remember it as we get to it, but otherwise those are the only 3 episodes that she had seen prior to leading up to now. So she doesn't,
Gotcha.
she knows nothing. So
Wait,
she's
so you
about to get
you didn't know any
mollywopped.
spoilers of this episode? You didn't know what happened with Angel and everything? Wow,
She
what
Well
a
done,
treat.
Brandon.
Yeah,
She
what a
tried.
treat.
Yeah, no, I try to stay
That's
like even
crazy.
when I watch them myself at
Yeah.
home, even because he's doing the thing now where I have to like do the prediction from the episode title. So
Uh-huh.
I like try to like shut my computer or like turn the TV off
Yeah.
before the little
Same.
episode title pops up because I'm like, no, I don't want it because I want it to be authentic, you
Yeah.
know, for the sake
Yeah.
of the podcast. So
Yeah.
as much as my own curiosity peaks sometimes, and I'm like, I gotta fucking know what's happening. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't even like bother to Google it or anything or like ask Brandon even because it'll ruin it. You
Yeah.
know, and
I
I'm
could
not like the
not
great
do that.
actress.
And I do breadcrumb
Yeah.
her
More to
sometimes.
you.
Like I told her last episode because we talked about the death of Kendra. She's like, "Well, obviously another Slayer comes." I was like, "Another one does." I gave her that, and then I was like,
Okay,
"You're gonna
cool.
really like her." And then I said,
Yeah,
and,
there's stuff
and I
like
breadcrumbed
that.
her that
Yeah.
she sticks around a lot longer than Kendra does. So I told her that because that's
Mhm.
kind of a no duh thing, but you know, everything else is kind of like I have to figure out how to say it, manipulate it the right way. So that was
Right.
just
Manipulated.
but for you guys becoming Buffy, y'all's air date of this was August 19th, 2021. So it's been 4 years now,
Crazy.
like almost since
I know, it's
y'all
crazy.
originally covered this. So not only reviewing it for this podcast, but mixing that in with your original watches and all of that, how do you show up to becoming part 2 now?
I think it's so insane that an episode in the second season of a show can be so impactful.
Mhm.
And I'm going to say this as non-spoiler as I can, but I feel like there's a lot of shows where big things happen, but then by the end of the show, it's kind of like, oh yeah, that thing happened, blah, blah, blah. Whereas Buffy does a really, really good job of everything that happens in the show.
True.
You feel its repercussions, you feel the ripples of it. Whether it's good, bad, neutral, whatever it is, you still feel it. Like these characters really do carry what happens to them. And I think that's part of what makes the emotional ties so strong is that you actually feel like they're carrying what happened 3 seasons ago.
There's this.
Yeah, it feels human. It feels normal. Like, oh yeah, something traumatic didn't just happen to you and you're like, okay, class is tomorrow. Like how sometimes a lot of other coming of age stories can feel. But also just major props. I think it's really, really ballsy to go this dark and this deep in like the second season of a show.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, even the ending of the first season was kind of like crazy, but it was still, you know, less ramifications of it. You know, Buffy comes back after she like quote unquote dies. You're still able to kind of come back. Whereas like with this, it's like, where do you go from there? And I think that's such an interesting choice going into the third season of a show. And honestly, I think that it pays off. Like season 2 and season 3 will always have such a special place in my heart because I feel like they really prioritize the emotional impact of the characters and all that over everything else. And I think it really pays off. And I think that's when Buffy, like the show, does things the best is when they prioritize how the audience is going to feel coming off of it. Because, I mean, Lord knows it's not going to be coming from the effects and stuff. So, that's emotional.
They play to their strengths.
Yes, as they should. But I love this episode. I mean, everybody and their mom knows that, like, I went through, like, mourning after this episode because I thought Angel actually died. And so I literally was like, oh, I'm going to kill myself. Like, bye. And I just shut off the show. So I have, like, such an attachment because literally every time I watch this, like, I mourn. I'm like, it's just, even, like, knowing the show, I still am like, it's so painful. Like, I love Angel. I love Buffy. And this episode is such a closing of a chapter. And it doesn't matter how many times I watch the show, it will always feel like just a closing of a chapter. You know, you're saying goodbye to such an innocent part of Buffy and such a beautiful thing that her and Angel have. And it's just it's so gut-wrenching. It's beautiful. It's well done. I wouldn't change it, but it never stops being painful in a good way, I guess.
Yeah, I was struck by obviously you've heard our thoughts on talking about it, but this time I kind of went at it from like a different perspective because obviously I'm not leading the episode. So I was like, okay, let's come at it from like more of a grounded perspective. And I think it was so interesting watching it and being like, obviously it's a supernatural show and there's a supernatural perspective, but I've always been so surprised at how grounded this episode really is. Like with having Kendra dying and then her friends in the hospital and then her mom kicks her out of her house. Like the
They go
thing
through a lot.
about this episode is that a lot of it pulls from real life elements
Mhm.
for a lot of people. Like a lot of people can relate to what Buffy's going through on a very visceral, personal level, not just the supernatural. And I think that's why this episode works. And Buffy itself, I mean, this is no surprise to anyone. Everybody knows that Buffy works the best when it pulls from real life elements. And I think obviously the ginormous sword fight with Angel is just so much fun to watch, and the portal and all that stuff. But what makes this episode resonate for so many of us is the fact that she's killing the person that she loves. Her mom has just kicked her out of her house. She can't go back to school. Like everything is changing.
Mm-hmm.
And those are things that we can, if maybe not resonate on a personal level, we can at least understand because it's a little bit easier to grasp than, oh my gosh, I have to save the world, you know? And I think that's what makes this episode just absolutely fantastic, is how grounded it is.
Yeah, I think watching it again, quite a few years older, my frontal lobe is developed now. It wasn't 4 years ago. So I think like the emotions still hit, but it feels a little bit different. Like when I'm watching it, my heart breaks seeing like a young teenager having that very adult conversation with her mom, begging to be seen and heard, is very heartbreaking in a different way. Like, I mean, I've always loved that conversation, but seeing Buffy just very much like, I have to do this again. This is something I have to do. And putting up boundaries like that in such a strong, heartbreaking adult way as a 17-year-old is a different sort of frustration I have for her. And it's like, I can also sit here and understand from Joyce's perspective at least the kernels of the emotions of it. I don't agree with what she does, but I get the state that Joyce is in, because you're having to just process what your child's telling you, and then also knowing, okay, if this is real, there's so much to this job that I don't want to face right now, so therefore I'm just going to try to control. And so I know that comes from a place of love and protection because you're just panicking in the moment, but dude, when you say and do these things, this is extremely damaging, especially if this is like your only child. Like, you see things a little bit differently, and so it's very heartbreaking on multiple levels, because I'm able to have a little bit more empathy for Joyce's state, but still be very frustrated with her decisions and the things that she says, because you can't take those things back, you know what I mean? But I think that's the main scene that to me felt like it hit a little bit differently now in my middle to upper 20s, but the whole like Angel portion feels the same. It feels like I'm 15 again, watching it the first time every time. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Hurts just
poor
as bad.
Buffy, every time. Yeah.
Well, that's everybody's take on it. So that being said,
Let's go through it again.
Yeah.
everybody that's listening, grab your tissues if y'all got them handy, just in case. We can go ahead and walk through the episode. So the episode picks up right after part one ends with the cop yelling freeze as Buffy turns around to see two cops pointing guns at her, claiming she didn't do anything. The femme cop checks on dead Kendra, the male asking, what about up there, as Buffy takes notice of Xander unconscious up laying in the stacks, escorted out by them into the hall where we find Principal Snyder, who tells the cops who Buffy is, and if there's trouble, she's definitely behind it. Buffy snarking back at him,
"You stupid little troll, you have no idea." Attitude problem, serious.
I absolutely love that comment.
Yes.
Like, for her to like finally get that moment where she'd be like, "You motherfucker!" Like, she couldn't
No,
say that.
literally.
Yeah.
That's what I
the little
always
prick
get
he's
coded
been
as.
for
Yes.
like a whole season and a half. Also, Leah, your man's back.
Leah
I'm
loves
happy to see
Snyder.
him.
Leah
Leah
loves
loves
him.
Snyder.
My spicy king, I love him. He's just like, he's the way I wish I could act at work. On my worst days. No, not actually.
Brandon's judging you so hard. I know he's like, "Wait,
not
really?"
actually. I actually love kids and I love my job, but like
I caught that.
there is every once in a while where I'm like, my inner Snyder, it's just like always just there a little bit where I'm just like, oh,
Internally.
guys.
Yeah, we're
of
still sitting
course.
with him.
But he's just something about him. It's just it's right in my niche of humor, I think.
Some of the stuff he said, though, I'm just like, that's way too awful. Like, I get his snidness most of the time, but there's just some stuff that he's just said. I'm just like,
Yeah.
there's no way in hell. Like, but I
And
guess,
the biggest
Hellmouth, it
vendetta
makes
against
sense.
Buffy ever. It's like, what did she do to you? Like, what?
Having beef with a 16,
Because of
17-year-old
his
who does
job.
nothing.
No, he knows what she's doing, and we know that he knows. Courtney knows that now,
Yeah.
technically, too.
But she
like,
doesn't
as
know
far
that
as
he
her
knows that she knows.
Exactly. Look at them. Courtney loved that. She loves a Friends reference.
Yeah.
Well, the cop that has Buffy starts to try to arrest her, and she's like, hell no, elbows him and flips him over, which I love that move. And she starts to run out of the school as the femme cop comes out and opens fires on her, missing her, thankfully.
With Snyder standing right there. I was like, how'd you not hit Snyder?
And it was
she
a
said,
headshot.
she hollered, get down. He didn't, but
Okay.
on his part. And then obviously Buffy flees the school and they don't get her. She voices over her walkie.
All units, we have a fugitive on foot at the high school. Homicide suspect, female, blonde, approximately 16 years old. Suspect is very dangerous.
We cue the Buffy theme. Bow now now now.
I was late. I was muted, but
I'm gonna keep it in there just like that. Who gives a fuck?
like just sounds like more like a dying cat.
That's what Courtney is like. Literally, like
That is
sounds
what I
like
say
it sometimes
usually.
because every now and again it sounds like she meows versus the
Yep.
like,
Yeah.
everybody's is different. I'm here for it. I just appreciate it. We arrive back at the hospital after credits, where Buffy enters undercover in a beanie and long coat. I made a joke to Courtney because that one time she was wearing at the end of the pack that ugly beanie, and it was just like all pushed up on her head all the way. She didn't like snug it down. Even again, Courtney's like, why is she still not pulling that beanie all the way down on her head?
Gotta see her piercings. Gotta see the piercings.
Oh,
what it
true.
is.
Sarah Michelle Gellar's 27 piercings she has in her ear.
Yeah, they all look fantastic.
Dude, she's the reason why I wear triple hoops in my ears, like the small ones.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
in
I
high
love
school,
that.
it's so sick. And I have like the 3 right here, and then I have a multiple up top. But like the 3 are like the small hoops, and I'm like, I'm
Mhm.
so Buffy every time I have them.
I love it. I feel the same way. I posted it on the revamp story because at work, I like obviously I'm a massage therapist and I have to like clip my hair up to get it off my neck and stuff, so I'm not sweating and also not getting it like in the cream that's on my arm or all over people. And oftentimes I'll put it in a low ponytail and then clip it up to where it like hangs like a lot of season 4 Buffy like has in kind of season 5. And my hair's blonde, so when it hangs, it's like the same exact effect. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm Buffy. But people will comment and they're like, oh, your hair looks so 90s, and I'm like, oh my god, it worked,
You're like, that's exactly what I wanted.
I feel like
You're
they
like,
have no
thanks,
idea
this
what
cheers
that
us up.
means.
For real. She is found by Xander wearing a souvenir cast on his broken arm. Cops coming by him and him hugging into her to hide her. Buffy making a joke to him about, calling that equal parts protecting her and the other part copping a feel. But for once, Xander is not laughing. He takes her over to Willow's room where we see she's unconscious and suffering head trauma. Buffy blaming herself for letting her attempt the curse. Xander saying he needs to call Oz and let him know, just as Cordy comes in saying that she ran for a really, really long time, apparently. What she say, like multiple towns? She's like, I made it through 3 counties before I realized no one was chasing me. Like, poor Cordelia, but also a workout. And she also calls
But
herself
also
not
real.
very for real, but also not too brave, which we know the 3 counties are literally just like within a mile radius of Sunnydale.
Apparently,
Sunnydale's
within that
huge.
radius, they have like a zoo, many hospitals,
An airport, a bus station, the
Most
beach.
of it is like graveyards,
Like 3 malls, I think. Yeah.
A high school,
airport,
a
probably.
university, a community college,
A whole
They've got it all.
wood.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
They've got
Lots
it
and
all.
lots of woods, and it's always the same woods. You see that same
They have,
tree.
they have the airport.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, but yet in the very first episode, Cordelia's like,
We don't have a whole lot of town here.
but don't you know?
It's
Sunnydale
literally
is all
like
of California.
LA there.
Yes.
It's like always popping and everything, and they're like, "Yeah, Sunnydale just kind of sucks." It's like, you guys have a bar for high schoolers. What are you talking about?
Literally though. Oh my god. Well, Buffy assures that she did the right thing. Xander asking if Giles kept up with Cordelia, bringing us to the fact that he's not in the hospital and no one knows where he is. Flashing over to them. I know. Dun, dun, dun. I love it because I'm a big fan of cutscene transition magic, where the show is always so good. It says one thing and it ends it and takes you right over to the next scene.
Yes.
And we flash over to the mansion where we see Giles unconscious on the floor.
Okay. This scene killed me because I forgot that Angelus was laying on the floor
With
with
him?
him.
Yeah.
And he's like laying there kicking his
forgot about-
feet.
yeah.
He's like a little kid. He's like, good
having so
morning.
much
You know that
fun.
TikTok sound? Good morning. Good
He's like,
morning.
finally,
It's
you're awake.
Kylie.
I'm so bored.
It's Kylie. She's like, oh, rise and shine.
Oh my God. Yeah. I remember that like meme rolling around for a hot
Yeah,
second.
she's like, rise and shine. He's like kicking his feet. He's like, Rupert, hey, buddy.
It's like the weird vibrato, and you have to slide up to it. It's like, rise and shine.
Rise and shine.
It's
Something in
also
here.
the angle, because like the way it's shot, she's standing awkwardly over her crib. It's everything about it is so funny.
So obviously we know that he's on the floor waiting for him to wake up.
Kicking
And
his feet.
when he does finally wake up, he's like, you know, I want to torture you because it's been a while. And the last time he did that, they didn't even have chainsaws.
Okay, I'm not an expert on torture. I'm going to admit that right now. But I feel like if you're going to do it well, I feel like you wouldn't want to use a chainsaw because I feel like you kind of want it to last a little while. Wouldn't
Yes.
you change it?
But you get a
against,
finger
like,
with it or
both.
something.
Yeah.
It's for the terror, the sheer fear that you have when somebody's like, have you ever seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre? He doesn't half the time cut too many people with it. He's most of the time mauling them with a hammer and stuff like that. I mean, he does kill people with a chainsaw, but like, have y'all ever been to a haunted house and they chase you out with the non-bladed
Yes.
ones? Like,
Oh, yeah.
that just makes your
Uh-huh.
ass get up and go. So
Yeah.
like, I'll go ahead and jump to it though. I was like, I don't know about y'all, but one mention of a chainsaw and I probably would have told him from jump what to do because I ain't about to. I would rather be sucked
Yeah.
into hell and killed by a bunch of
Like,
demons
here it is.
than be chainsawed to death. Like, ain't no way. I've seen worse
Unfortunately,
things.
I know I
right.
could not hold up under pressure. Like all they would need to do is
No,
just
I
bring
think
out
I
a
would be
singular
horrible.
needle. Like not even threaten to
Leah.
put it to me. They just hold
Hold
a
it to
needle
your
and
eye.
okay, what do you want to
Ugh.
know?
Dude,
Like,
it was
I-
so funny. As a kid, I would walk up to annoy Leah. I wouldn't have to do anything. I would just pretend my finger was a needle and put it on Leah's arm, and Leah would freak
True.
out.
Figure out.
She'd be like, "Ow."
Stop.
Yeah, literally. I wouldn't do anything. I would just like touch it. And it would be like the sensitive part of her arm, so she just would freak out.
And Leah's a
It's-
fighter.
it's her
Leah
trauma.
will fight you back.
It's her trauma response from watching Marcy
Yeah,
stick that
it
needle
just
in
hurts
Buffy's
me.
neck.
Oh my god.
Ugh.
Oh my God. Where am I?
Sorry.
Angelus also informs that he needs Giles' help in awakening 𝑾𝒊𝒕𝒉, informing him of his failed previous attempt and needing the missing info from Giles, who he hopes refrains from giving him the knowledge because he really wants to torture him. He's like, I haven't done this in forever. I'm like, wouldn't you have done this just like as soon as you became Angelus again? Like, you've been torturing Buffy. What are you talking about now? You haven't strapped somebody to a chair and, you know, went
It's
toe to
like
toe
Angelus-
with them, but
There are a ton of people in Sunnydale. You could have tortured anyone. Like, come on. You know it.
Nobody
This
has
is
fun.
whose
Dang it,
problem is
someone
this? This is
special.
yours.
Yeah.
Xander was there the whole time. Like,
For real.
Exactly.
And maybe I wouldn't care as
Snyder.
much. We would take a little bit longer to go and save him than if it was Xander.
Yeah, Giles was there. Xander was there. Like, come on, you had
Yeah.
your options.
we go over to the Summers residence. The cops are there looking around and questioning Joyce about Buffy, who calls this a mistake. And this is the same detective that we saw back in Ted leading the investigation. Joyce saying that she was supposed to be at Willow's, the cop calling her the second victim. Joyce stunned as they mentioned Buffy's history of violence, aka negative vibes flowing, informing Joyce to call them if she hears anything or if she comes home before leaving. I love that we get Detective Stein back, like, and then we also see him like later on. I've already breadcrumbed Courtney that like he always pops back up. So I'm almost curious sometimes if he also kind of knows who Buffy is, since he's the one, especially even maybe since like last interaction, and since the cops of the Sunnydale aren't quite as stupid as Snyder calls them later. You know, they all are very aware of what's happening in this town and how to like cover up PCP this that like flooded sewer systems, snakes in the high school. Like there's always an excuse. So like the fact that he's always popping up, I'm curious like where the level of his mentality state like sits with knowing about Buffy potentially.
And I feel like you can infer, especially with Snyder like calling and saying like tell the mayor and all this stuff, and he's like, oh, the police are deeply stupid, and it's like, are they stupid, Snyder, or are they also in the mayor's payroll, and so they're being told to like sit back or do something differently or whatever. I also clocked it this time, and I don't know if I like remembered this for the last time that we recorded, but I think it's funny the same detective from Ted is like another strike against Joyce at the end of this episode, because like obviously it's supposed to be a callback to Ted, but it's also kind of like it's supposed to clue you in on the fact that Joyce actually is suppressing and is not actively opening her eye. Like Buffy calls her out at the very end. The fact that like Joyce is talking to the same police officer that came and interviewed her when Buffy killed her boyfriend a couple of episodes prior. Like, even the police officer, you can kind of tell he's being like, okay,
This is
lady, like, you clearly don't know
repetitious.
where your daughter is. Like, you and I both know, like, your daughter is capable of more than, like, what you're letting on.
hmm
So I think, like, the show is also using this as a strike against Joyce for the very end conversation between her and Buffy as kind of like a, you've had every opportunity to figure out what's going on, and you're choosing now to, like, okay, Buffy, now you're going to tell me. And it's like, well, why didn't you do this like 7 episodes ago, or however long it was?
Yeah, I agree. That's like stuff that I think about. I'm like interested to see when we see him again, like where that's going at and stuff too. Like looking at it, because I've just never really paid it attention. And I was like, oh shit. So over at Giles' home, Buffy enters to check if he's there, but finds Whistler inside instead, who Buffy immediately checks up against a wall because he is saying the wrong things, telling him that she's had a shitty day.
I have had a really bad day, okay? If you have information worth hearing, then I am grateful for it. If you're going to crack jokes, then I'm going to pull out your ribcage and wear it as a hat.
Hello to the imagery. Very nice.
He tells her it wasn't supposed to go down this way and how no one saw her coming. I'm like, but yet you did.
He's
Because
so
you
cryptic.
did. So like, what are you talking about?
Angel to go to her. I was like, wait, what?
Literally, you sent him to her. How did you not see her coming? I guess didn't see her coming in this way. And he thought Angel was there to stop 𝑾𝒊𝒕, not bring him forth, realizing that he's a creep again because of Buffy and his smoochies. And he asked Buffy what she's going to do, better yet, what she's prepared to do. Her stating whatever she has to, him changing his statement to, well, what are you prepared to give up? She calls him for what he is, a useless immortal demon with no info sent down here to even the score between good and evil. And I'm just like, I know he says good guess, but I'm like, how the fuck Buffy just called this out? Like, she gonna do the same thing with Doyle. You don't know who that is.
I felt like the use of Whistler in this episode was very convenient. It was very like, we need someone there to like someone for Buffy to talk to like also kind of like make the episode more ominous. There was actually a line that was cut out of the script, which I'm really glad they actually cut it out. So Whistler had said, wasn't supposed to go down like this. You two made with the smoochies and now he's a creep again. The script says she hates to hear that. It takes her down a peg. And then she says, we didn't know. And then Whistler says, hey, not here to judge a body like yours. I'd pretty much give up my soul for a shot at that too.
Ew.
But it took Angel off the roster, which puts you on the spots in a big way. The amount of like victim blaming and like gross,
it's giving
like,
the statutory vibes. Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
See, this is why I love
Also,
Sarah
it's
coming in with some
so-
extra context.
It's also so
I'm sorry about that
demeaning.
one though.
It's so demeaning to Angel to kind of boil it down to like, oh, Angel just wanted to get freaky. It's like,
Yeah, right.
it's demeaning obviously to Buffy as well. Like, I feel like that
Yeah,
one's
if that
obviously
comment
the
had
more
stayed,
the
like,
more
oh.
overt one. But it's just really sad that it's like, you were the one who was like supposed to be in Angel's corner cheering him on. And yet here you are being like, oh, Angel was so reckless and all this stuff. It's like, no, dude, like, he just wanted to be happy. Like, oh my God. Sue him.
Well, I'm also
That's not
like,
good for
kind
him.
of pissed. Yeah, right. I'm also kind of pissed at Whistler because there's a lot of like, he's like, oh, we didn't see this coming, blah, blah, blah. But we literally saw the episode before when he sets Angel on his path. He also found Buffy and sent Angel to Buffy.
That's what I'm saying.
But then he's over here objectifying Buffy and also blaming her for sleeping with Angel and being like, well, this is your mess. How are you going to pick it up?
Smoochies,
But
Which
yeah.
I know like
also-
is also the subliminal message of the show, which I kind of disagree with because again, it's a product of Joss in its time. But it's just like, come on, she didn't know. She has no way. Angel didn't know. And like, is this really fully her mess to clean up? Like, I know she's the Slayer, but whatever.
Also, acting as if this is a possibility that would have never happened when he, in the last episode, brings Angel to see Buffy, and then right after that is like, oh, like she must be prettier than the last one. So then
Oh,
you
yeah,
know.
that
So you
too.
know that there's a
Ugh.
possibility that Angel's at least attracted to her, and that
Mhm.
could be another reason why he wants
That
to
is a
redeem
good point,
himself.
Jobs.
So it's like,
Yeah.
I just don't understand that.
Yeah, he was bothering me this rewatch, and I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
I was like, ew.
Yeah.
Ew.
He's in such little parts of this episode specifically. He had more of and I really like Whistler's role. I mean, I like his role in both. Like, and now that obviously, like I said, provides more context. But I loved like his interaction and his backstory with Angel last episode that we're coming off of. I really like the fact that he came into the show and played his part in that way. But now it almost feels like him being here is a little bit useless in this episode. Like we could have done
Yeah,
without
I
him in it. But it's obviously to him to create these subliminal and indirect messages to Buffy, so that way like sets us up as the audience being like, you know, what the stuff that he says to her right before she goes to kill him or whatever, you know, like you got one more thing to lose and all this other stuff. So he's there for those little tidbits. But I'm just like, Whistler, you really could have just not
we
been
don't
here
need
for
them
this.
though. It's like he feels.
And why
like
are you in Giles' apartment just chilling?
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah, why are you
did you know
spoiling
Buffy
stuff
was gonna
while
come there? Like what?
Right.
So
He like set all this up. He knew Giles was gonna get tortured, and he's like, "Yes, now I can get to the good wine."
A bad character usually is one that's thrown in there that makes me ask more questions than solve questions. And so when he pops in for literally 2 episodes, I'm sitting here being like, okay, but then I have so many questions. Like, how do you know all this? Do you and Angel still talk? What do you see the future? Like, how did you even know Angel was what he was? Like, why are you in Angel's apartment? You know, all these things.
yeah.
Yeah.
Courtney, did you like Whistler in general, like over the episode and stuff?
No.
Okay, good. High five.
She's like, guys,
High
he
five,
was my
Courtney.
favorite character.
I mean, it's like you guys are saying, like, I get his point as far as like he was just placed there, I guess, for like this mouthpiece of information from time to time, I guess, to tie certain pieces together. But like you're saying, it just sometimes when they do this, it creates more like either holes in the plot or in the story, or you just have more questions than about this random character that they just threw in, because you're like, where did he come from? Why is he here now? Especially because it's such a big episode. So it almost kind of like threw me. Like, I'm like, does he have a greater purpose? What is going on? Is he just like randomly placed here? So yeah, I didn't really care for him because he just didn't seem like all that purposeful in the storyline for me, I guess. But
and I guess spoiler wise, like without giving too much to, obviously he was supposed to have a bigger role later on possibly in the series, but he couldn't make it to come back. So they had to recreate that another way. And that's where I'm going to leave that at. But this was trying to introduce a character that could have like been fleshed out more, and then it just never got the chance to do that with him. So
Yeah. And I think because they didn't, we're left with a lot of like, oh, this kind of feels like wasted space, which I think Whistler is trying to fill the space that Giles would normally fill in right here.
Yes.
Where
informative.
him and Buffy would talk and Giles would be like, well, this is what's going to happen. These are going to be the consequences. This is your sacred duty. And since Giles isn't here, there needs to be someone that pushes Buffy a little bit.
Yeah, I guess I
down
didn't
that
think
path.
about that.
Yeah.
Well, she says that she's tired of fighting evil by herself and claims that he needs to help, him informing her that she's always by herself in the end. You're all you got. That's the point. Her storming out as he yells that the sword won't be enough. You got to be ready and know how to use it. Outside and near the park, we see Buffy walking when she's stopped by a police car, clocking her as the suspect, drawing a gun on her, and she raises her hands. But the cop lasts all of 2 seconds because we see arms and legs come from the side of him and take him out. Spike stepping into frame, having just helped Buffy, stating,
"Hello, cutie."
Absolutely love this part, but Buffy goes into attacking him. I love that's her immediate reaction. So obviously we get a cutscene for like commercial break. When we come back in, it's immediately Buffy punching him, and I'm like, I was like, we'll get tired of this. But he pushes her.
Such a good duo. Like whether they're fighting at each other's throats, whether they're on the same team, like they're just so interesting to watch together. Like their characters play off each other so well.
Mm-hmm. Especially in the earlier seasons too, just like the interactions that we get here, they're more pure in that way. Oh god, I wish we could talk. I wish I could just talk to you guys.
I know.
But like that's so hard. But obviously she goes to an attacking him, and he's like, whoa, after she pulls out her stake to end it. She's like, you're out of here. And he's like, white flag here, I quit. Buffy retorting,
let me clear this up for you. We're mortal enemies. We don't get timeouts.
You want to go around pet? I'll have a gay old time of it.
Him adding, if she wants to stop Angel, then they're going to have to play this differently. Buffy thinking this is a lame trick that they've all cooked up. Very fair, very valid. Spike informing her Angel's got her watcher, which, you know, obviously cues Buffy to be like, oh, fuck, I probably need to pay a little bit more attention than just like fight first, ask questions later. To which he's probably torturing by now. She settles down to ask what he wants, and he claims that he wants to stop Angel. He wants to save the world. Buffy wondering if he has amnesia. He tells her vamps like to talk big, but it's tough guy talk. But Angelus, he could actually pull it off. Whereas that would end the world, the one that Spike likes, because it's full of things like people he can eat, aka Happy Meals with legs. Buffy takes it that he's not down with Angel, and Spike says he wants Drew back because Angel has corrupted her. She calls him pathetic, and he punches her. She punches him back and says that she's lost a friend tonight, and he seems to only be worried about his big hoe podcasting name stealing girlfriend she doesn't give a fuck about.
That's one of my favorite line reads of the episode. I mean, obviously the gut wrenching line reads are really great, but she's like, "You want my help because your girlfriend's a big hoe." The way she says
So
it, it's so
funny.
good.
She doesn't give a fuck. He claims that they need each other's help, and she hits him once more, saying that she really hates him clearing up that he is all she's got. So she agrees, and the two walk off together to get inside. Two things I want to bring up about this scene. One, honestly, if Angelus hadn't spent the whole season taunting Spike, constantly belittling him, flaunting his relationship with Drusilla, and treating him like a useless cripple, I don't think Spike would have turned on him, because the betrayal in Becoming Part 2 isn't just about convenience or self-preservation. It's personal at that point. And Angelus pushed Spike too far with his arrogance and disrespect. I was getting driven crazy by this watch around, because I always remembered it was there, but it just hit differently. And I was like, if you had shown just a little bit more loyalty and decency to Spike, then he would have stayed on your side. But obviously Angelus underestimated him, and that's what got him literally stabbed in the back in the end. And my second part, it's more of like something for me to recircle back to later because of spoilers. I can't really get into it fully, but I love how Spike calls out vampires for what they usually are, more talk than action, just wanting to feed and hang out, not cause total chaos. But there's always that one who takes it too far, obviously this here being Angelus, and Spike knows him well enough to say that he's actually unhinged enough to end the world, but I don't fully buy that. And that's where I'm going to leave that, so that way I can literally.
You're like, I'm planting seeds.
I really did, because I'm going to circle back to it. I literally wrote in my notes, and then I have a callback sheet that I have saved for all the Buffy callbacks and stuff. So that way, if I have moments like this, I can reconnect it later when we're in that episode. And I already have the episode detailed stuff, but it's kind of like season 4 Angel stuff, which I can't say anything about, But
yeah, I'm curious, Courtney, were you really surprised by Spike teaming up with Buffy, or was it something that you kind of, yeah.
Had no idea, did not see that coming. And in fact, I feel like going back over my notes for this episode for the final slays and stuff, I realized that a lot of my attention went to Spike.
Yeah.
I think because of that, because it was just so kind of unexpected for me as a first time viewer. So yeah, I didn't see that coming at all, but it was a good surprise, because I spent up until that moment just being utterly annoyed with his existence. I started getting better when I realized that he was able to walk, but he was being a savage and keeping it a secret. I was like, okay, I think I kind of like this guy. So when that happened, I was like, okay, I think I really like him now, for now anyway. So
I think he's best to me in the show when he toes that line between reluctantly helping but then also having selfish motivations. I find that really fun. Yes, and then his, obviously, without a doubt, there is so much chemistry between him and Sarah Michelle Gellar. So anytime they're with each other and having that tug of war with each other on screen in this specific sort of dynamic, I really love it.
Me too.
I think it's such a wonderful payoff too,
because
like you said, it feels like Spike was underutilized this season after he got into the wheelchair and then Angelus took over. And so there's something simmering and brewing, and you're like, oh, he'll probably turn on Angelus in the final fight. But the fact that he goes to Buffy makes so much sense and is also there's such a good build up to it without it being obvious. As a viewer, you're pleasantly surprised. And it's oh, if that's the surprise halfway through the episode, or not even halfway through the episode, the payoff's going to be really, really good.
Totally. Yeah. And it was entertaining to watch for sure.
Back at the hospital, Xander sits with Willow, expressing to her emotionally that she's his best friend and he needs her to wake up. He tells her also that he loves her, and her hand flinches. She starts regaining consciousness and she says Oz's name out loud. And I love it too, because Courtney started laughing out loud whenever she did that. She was like, ha, that kind of that's what you get. Kind of, I guess, is that what you were thinking in that moment? You thought she was going to, because you know how we've been playing with their energies, especially this season, and us on her side for sure. And, she's come off of being addicted to Xander loving, but also the fact that now he gets to hear her say some other guy's name when you would expect her to be oh, Xander, and this be a possible moment for them to erupt into this relationship that they've been trying to breadcrumb us through this whole time, and say, isn't it gonna happen type thing. So I'm glad you had that reaction, though, but I laughed out loud with you whenever you laughed.
It's so funny because it's you feel like in any other show, they would try to get Xander and Willow together. And obviously that might still happen. But they introduce Oz, and Oz is such the superior guy in every way. And like
Yeah.
Seth and Allison's chemistry is so good that you immediately go, I don't know if I want Xander and Willow together. Like, and also
Yeah.
like Oz treats her so well and she loves him. And all of a sudden you're just like, I have no desire to see those two characters together. And it's just,
Yeah.
it's so
It's also
funny.
just
That's
so
a good
nice seeing Xander get humbled.
yeah, because Lord knows he needs it this episode.
I think that's a good point there, because usually in rom-coms or like the second movie of like this like romance trilogy or whatever, I'm thinking of like the really bad ones, maybe like the Kissing Booth or something, where like the second one they're trying to have them kind of stall them being with somebody. They'll throw in like another option, but another option is like almost always like obviously not as like their chemistry's not as great, they're clearly not that much of a match, there's no real threat there. But in Buffy, you're sitting here going, okay, so everyone seems to love Oz and Willow together. They seem like the like objectively better couple, and so you're sitting here being like, so what are we gonna do with this then? Because they're still kind of sprinkling some stuff here and there, which is like odd to me, because usually if you're gonna have a boyfriend come in and you want them to be together, it's like one where you're kind of like waiting for them to break up and you're like, wait, but like Oz is really great and they like seem to really like
I
each
didn't
other,
expect
so.
that at all. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, just as his name is spoken, he comes in the door while Xander leaves to go find a doctor. He kisses Willow and sits with her as she asks if everyone else is okay. And I like her little comment too. She's like, my head feels big. Is it big? And he's like, no, it's normal head sized. I just remember that. I don't have that in my notes, but I loved
The
it.
script is so cute because it says he kisses her on her head-sized head. It's so like
That's very cute. I didn't know that. We get another round of cutscene transition magic over to Giles, bloodied up, tied to a chair, well into his torture session with Angelus, who is seen cleaning off Giles' glasses for him. And I like it, the little like position here. I'm not going to say juxtaposition. Giles' glasses getting cleaned for him, because we usually always see him cleaning his glasses, but now it's Angel playing this role. I thought it was a really cute thing. He returns them to his face, and he's impressed because Giles seems to be doing okay, wondering how he's doing, and Giles firmly stating never better. Angela sits by him to continue, telling Giles to let him know when it hurts. And then we go back over to Buffy and Spike, who walk up her sidewalk as Joyce drives up, getting out of her car, shouting at Buffy about...
She is like revving up that driveway.
Yeah. So obviously Joyce pulls up and stuff. She starts freaking out on Buffy about like all the bullshit that's taking place. Joyce is concerned about where she's been, who this man is, and what the fuck is up. Buffy urges them to get inside, but Joyce needs answers. Spike asking what your mom doesn't know. Buffy trying to keep up with the charade. She's like, oh, I'm in a rock band with Spike here. She's the drummer, aka Hell on the Old Skins, while he's the singer. Joyce isn't buying it, and Buffy motions them inside. Joyce unsure about all of this, just as a vampire leaps out before her. Buffy tossing him back, Spike punching him a few times when he spins around into Buffy's stake. We get the 2K per sleigh right in front of Joyce, who is taken aback and stunned. He and her speak on the vamp, being one of Angel's boys, who won't get a chance to tattle on them now. Joyce asking once more what is going on. Buffy stepping to her to finally admit,
Mom, I'm a vampire slayer.
It's also, it's just funny because like, when did Angel collect like a gang of vampires?
He's got lackeys. He's been killing all of Buffy's friends to send them out after her.
When did he get all these lackeys and stuff? Like, did I
But
miss
worst
him assembling
henchman
an army?
ever.
Yeah, I know.
If his job is to spy on Buffy, why did he jump out in front of Buffy and Spike?
It's the
He knew
behind
he
the
was
scenes.
gonna
Yeah,
die.
absolutely. No, I don't even understand why he did that regardless. And like, obviously he doesn't get a chance to
Angel.
tattle, but it's funny too, because at the very end, you get the two vampires that are standing next to 𝑾𝒊𝒕𝒉 we've never seen before. And they're just there. So I'm like, did they sire the guy that Angel killed last episode to like get the blood? And like, that's one of the guys that stands. I didn't look like it, but you know what I mean? I'm
Worst
like, where did they
henchman
come
ever
from?
this episode. I was like, Angel, do better.
Yeah, but regardless, the secret is out. Courtney, I need your thoughts on the reveal of Joyce finding out this way.
I mean, appropriately done, I think, in my opinion, given all the circumstances. Obviously, when I envisioned this moment, I didn't expect Spike to be standing there like casually, just like, hey.
So funny. She like
Like,
looks at him before she tells
I
Joyce.
know, and that was the best part for me because she's like, what do I do? I'm like, why are you looking at him? Like, he's far from your position. So yeah, it was kind of a lot more entertaining than I thought, and a lot less like tense. And like, I don't know, I thought when this reveal happened or this moment happened, it would be like, oh, you know, this, like, we're in the middle of this whole, like, the world's ending or something, you know, and then she has to like tell her mom. So for it to almost seem casual, like, hey, here I just laid this like vampire in front of you, and now I'm prepared for the bombardment of questions, but I'm still gonna look at Spike for like counsel. You know what I mean? Like, it was just so kind of all over the place, but it made me love the moment even more because it wasn't like so drawn out or so tense like the way that I foresaw. So yeah, I appreciated it for what it was, but I was also kind of like, it just reminds me that Joyce is obviously high all the time, you know, because I'm like, how have you not bothered to put this together? Because even Buffy herself is like, Mom, you've been washing blood out of my clothes for like however long. All these weird things are happening in this town, and you're just like selling drugs and, you know, smoking pot or whatever you're doing all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It just, I got really irritated with Joyce in the beginning of like season 1, where it just seems like she's this clueless, oblivious parent, which like you were saying makes all this feel so relatable, even though we're not out here facing demons or vampires or whatever. Like, it does a good job at bringing you back into this really relatable spot. And I think, Brandon, were you the one who said when they had their moment later, it touched base on almost like this coming out story,
Yeah,
you know,
we'll get
where
there.
it's like, yeah. And it just, like you were saying, it just is this whole, the relatable part of it does so, just comes through so well with this show. And I love that because it's not relatable at all. You know, we're not vampire slayers, but I love that even that moment with her having to like tell her mom something so profound about her identity just feels, even that feels relatable.
Yeah.
And I think because it was casual, it was even more relatable, because if we had our friend standing there, we'd be looking at them like, what do I do?
Yeah.
You know? That's how it felt. So it was really nice. I liked it.
That's what I like about the scene, though, and the way that she does get the reveal to her is the fact that they come off of a lie, and it just goes to show that telling the truth is the best option most times, like no matter what in life, like, because otherwise it's going to come out anyways, and it literally did, you know, all of 45 seconds later. But that's a good point into making. But I love how Joyce found out here because it's right in front of her face. Like, there's not her just saying, you know, she's told her mom 6 times since the show started that she saves the world from vampires. Like when they're in the mall in Bad Eggs, she's like makes comments and does all this stuff, and then obviously we get stuff for later on that like this has already been an awareness thing, and her mom's just been choosing to like turn a blind eye to certain things. Like we also get, like you were saying, in the reveal later on in a little bit. But the fact that Joyce literally gets to see a vampire dust, you can't unexplain that. You can't be like, what the fuck is going on? Like, you have to have the answers at that point. So I really like how they have this here, and the fact that Spike is here with her in this moment too, to kind of be like back up and being like, yeah, so I'm also a vampire. If she needed a little extra security, he could just vamp out real quick and be like, you know, like, I'm this evil thing, but I'm helping your daughter out right now. So it's a whole thing.
Yeah, I think I touched on it a little bit earlier too, but I think as frustrating as it is having this conversation where you're like, girl, like, why haven't you noticed all these things? And then now you're like upset when she's communicating it with you, and then like being like, I need to leave. I do actually kind of think it is pretty accurate to a lot of type of parents, especially during this time. I feel like my mom would probably react similarly, and she probably wouldn't notice. So, and I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying that that's pretty accurate. So, like, I do think, especially, I don't know what it was with that generation of parents sometimes, not everyone, but I've noticed a trend sometimes with, like, I think they, in good and bad ways, I think I had a very, like, freer childhood where they were like, be outside until like 9 p.m., hang out with your neighbors, like do it all. And there was a lot of freedom with that. And I really do think a lot of kids nowadays lack a lot of that. But I think we had like way too much sometimes. And I think like, and I grew up in the early 2000s, so I've heard even like more of that in the 80s, like where they're just walking from miles and hang out with friends, and like, you know what I mean, just doing stuff like that, walking to the grocery store in like sketchy areas, and their parents just don't even know where they are like at all. So I think like we've slowly, and I think right like now it's like I barely see kids outside sometimes, but I think I can understand that, but also at the same time Joyce has one child, so I'm like even less of like that's kind of that's how it was during the time. I'm like, you have one child, but then again, I'm also like, okay, she is a single mom, and I know that like especially in season 1, they had just moved, and from what she knows, her child burned down a gym in her last school. So I can understand like the spaciness being like, please don't screw things up. But there's not as much like conversations where you're like sitting down and be like, why did you feel the need to burn down the school?
Yeah.
Why? Like,
That's
do you know
always
what I
the
mean?
argument with Joyce.
Yeah. And so I think like as much as I like Joyce's character, I think when I see a lot of criticism for her, I don't blame them for it. I can understand where she's coming from a lot of the times and still sit here and be like, girl, but you're valid in these feelings, but you had so many opportunities to have these like heart to hearts with Buffy to kind of do check-ins here and there and be like,
I
hey,
talked
like,
about that strongly in our TED coverage. Like that was where it started to really bother me. And thankfully, not to cut you off or anything, but thankfully we really got to see some in the mother-daughter action and surprise innocence, especially whenever she gets to sit down with Buffy and talk about like the birds and the bees and all of that stuff and what she's been going through and whatnot, you know, all that. And then obviously it blows up in a few moments whenever she's like, well, it ends now. Like, I'm done. I'm tired of this. I don't have time and all that other stuff. You know what I mean? So this is, I think, what puts Joyce at the forefront moving forward, where it's like the first couple of seasons, I think, is more the approach where people get upset with everything that you're talking about, how Joyce is as a motherly figure and just a parental guide for Buffy, you know?
And I also think they're trying to go at it at the idea of like Joyce was like choosing to be willfully ignorant in a lot of ways, because I think she just kind of was like hoping that the stuff that Buffy was getting into was just kind of like typical teenager stupid things. And I think that she's really trying to learn how to navigate being a teenage parent or a parent of a teenager and being like, okay, in what ways do I interfere? In what ways do I not? And I think that this is one of those lines where she's like, okay, now's the time where I be the parent and I step up and I put my foot down here. And it's like, no, this is not the time. This is not the way you do it. So I think the criticisms of Joyce are super valid, but I feel for Joyce because I know in a lot of ways that she's just trying to do what she thinks is best.
So over at the hospital, Willow's on the phone with Buffy, who is pleased her brain didn't get mushed at all. Willow apologizing for failing at curing Angel. Buffy's not mad at all, calling it not meant to be, and she's just never going to get him back the way he was, and she's accepting that now, and how that's also making it easier. Also telling her how she got a lucky break on where Giles is. Clipping over to the living room where Joyce sits with Spike, awkward and quiet. Buffy now on the phone with Xander. I like how we get that little bit of like just a tiny moment of them sitting together.
The script is so funny. It says Joyce sits in the living room with Spike. They both are silent and uncomfortable like it's Sunday and he's come a-courtin'. Joyce has a glass of bourbon in her hands which shakes only slightly.
That's so funny. She's drinking the hard stuff. She can smoke and she's like, I need straight to the drink. And she's like, I need something to be an instant. Like, you know, my system.
The scene with Spike and Joyce reminds me of is like when you're really close to like a friend, so close that like the parents feel very comfortable like reprimanding their kid in front of you. That's exactly how I have felt being like the Spike in this situation where you're just kind of like there with the angry parent and then the kid like storms off and it's like, do I follow my friend? Do I stay with the parent? That is exactly the vibe I've gotten here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, I was just like crying laughing because Spike in this scenario is just kind of like, okay, who do I go with?
Mm-hmm.
We could have saved Drusilla here or what? Like, I don't care about this beef that's going on between you guys.
For real. And that's just so funny because you get so much just from that one little scene of just them sitting there. Buffy's telling Xander about where Giles is held up, that being the mansion, and how she's going to hit it come daybreak. She tells him that she's covered at the moment on backup, and he wonders if Giles is still alive, and she thinks so, wishing he was there for her guidance. And this is here where I like wrote in my notes. I was like, Buffy is having to make all these decisions on her own because her watcher is missing. She has no direction, and it is all on her, like Whistler was already telling us it was going to be. Back in the living room, Joyce is asking Spike if she's met him. He claims,
You hit me with an axe one time. Remember, get the hell away from my daughter.
She remembers she tries to make more Saul talk when Buffy comes in to tell him about Willow, then asks Spike what's the deal. He calls it simple. She lets him and Drew skip town. He helps her kill Angel. Joyce in the background like, Angel your boyfriend? Buffy ignoring her to tell Spike to forget that deal. Drusilla doesn't walk. Him claiming, well, then there's no deal. And she informs that Drew killed Kendra, and Spike gets excited about that.
Drew bagged a Slayer? She didn't tell me. Good for her. Though not from your perspective, I suppose.
Joyce is relieved that she didn't kill the girl. Of course not, Buffy says. Joyce asking,
Did she explode like that man out there?
I just love like the like interjections that Joyce is doing. It's fucking funny up until a point. And Buffy telling her that she was also a Slayer. Spike pulls Buffy aside to tell her that this is the deal. They will leave the country and they'll never hear from them again. He bloody well hopes. She agrees and instructs him to get back and check on Giles and make sure he stays all right. This whole time, Joyce chiming in, are you sure you're a Slayer? I mean, have you tried not being a Slayer? And Buffy is like, Mom, shut the fuck up. Just like, bitch, you gotta hush.
As if she would choose that.
Yeah. Right. And it's also so coded. Obviously, we'll talk about it in a second.
Totally.
But she then tells Spike before he leaves, if Giles dies, Drew dies. Joyce wants to call the police to get her off the hook and possibly help out, but Buffy claims that's a bad idea. They won't know how to deal with this. Cops can't fight demons. She's the one that has to do it. Keeping her mom away from the phone, Joyce demands once more what is happening. To know once more what is happening. Buffy scoffing and telling her to have another drink, which was also really intense. Like, I was just like, oh, fuck. And then Joyce, the first time ever we've ever seen her react this way, she throws the glass across the room and she's like, don't you dare tell me to do some shit like that. And she's like, you can't just dump something like this on me and expect me to understand. Buffy saying she doesn't have time for this. And Joyce exclaiming,
No, I am tired of I don't have time or you wouldn't understand. I am your mother and you will make time to explain yourself.
I told you. I'm a vampire slayer.
Well, I just don't accept that.
Cueing Buffy to finally unleash it all on Joyce. She states to her, open your eyes, Mom. What do you think has been going on the past 2 years? The fights, the weird occurrences. How many times have you washed blood out of my clothing? You still haven't figured it out? Joyce interrupting, well, it stops now. Buffy yelling, no, it doesn't stop. It never stops. Do you think I chose to be like this? Do you have any idea how lonely it is? How dangerous? I would love to be upstairs watching TV, gossiping about boys, or God, even studying. But I have to save the world again. Joyce grabbing her, stating, Buffy, you need help. Buffy shoving her arms off and stating, I'm not crazy. What she needs is for her to chill. I have to go. Moving towards the door as Joyce grabs her once again, telling her she's not letting her leave, but then Buffy pushes and shoves her back into the counter. Joyce in a rage yelling at her, if you walk out of this house, don't even think about coming back. Buffy taking one final look at her mother and turns to walk outside.
Man, even just hearing that made me tear up. I'm like, oh, it's so heartbreaking every time.
Watching it always makes me do the same. Now, obviously, this scene between Buffy and Joyce works on a literal level as metaphor for the road to adulthood, but it's about the loss of childhood innocence and the burden of responsibility, and that alone is tragic. But I think most Buffy fans also recognize that it also carries heavy queer-coded subtext. This exchange has become iconic in the LGBTQI plus community for a reason. Buffy is essentially coming out to her mom, revealing a truth about herself that she can't change. And instead of love, she's met with fear, ultimatums, and rejection. As a queer person, I resonated deeply with that. And I know everybody else has. Tony spoke on it recently and all that. I've lived that scene. I've literally heard the exact same words. If you're going to be that way, you can't do it in this house. And I've been kicked out of my house and had to go live down the street with friends and stuff and have weeks where I'm just not speaking to my parents. I went 6 months without talking to my mom when I first came out, and that was still that up until I was 18, 19. That was at 16, which is so synonymous with Buffy. I know she's 17 now, but that happened to me, and that's not fun to go through because you feel so alone in the world when you're already so afraid of how people are going to treat you because you know how people already now it's a little bit better, but especially this is 2006 that this is happening. People are hating on gay people, and they still do. Not that doesn't happen, but I find so many more people that are accepting in this day and time, and I don't have to feel on the fence about it. Also, I'm very secure in who I am these days, but it's not fun to hear. And that moment hits really hard for Buffy, and it's why season 2 means so much to me, and why I find it, like I said, empowerment through Buffy as a character, because she accepts herself even when no one else does. And for anyone listening right now, especially any parents, please take this scene as a message. If your child ever comes out to you, don't meet them with judgment or fear. You don't have to understand everything, and obviously there's the acceptance of what you're going through. You have validity in your feelings and the way that you can be feeling of this being sprung on you in a way, which most of you fucking knew anyways. I will
will say that too, because my parents totally knew I was gay. I played with Barbies my whole life, but just meet them with love, compassion, and openness, because what they need in that moment isn't answers. It's someone on their side. Because at the end of the day, Buffy doesn't just come out as the Slayer. She comes out as herself, and her mother's response isn't support. It's not fear, it's rejection. And so Buffy does what any teenager or really person on the edge of transformation has to do. She walks away from the life that won't make space for who she really is.
Well said.
Very well
here.
Yeah, what are y'all's thoughts on the scene?
I mean, as someone who's not a part of the community, I have like so much of an outside perspective of just like, I think that's really beautiful, but it's not, that moment and that scene isn't going to hit as hard for me on like a personal level. But I think on like a human level, we've all had moments where we've opened up to somebody and been met with judgment or just not like a safe space about something that you're going through, that you want, or closeness, or just somebody to just listen and be there for you. So anybody can take something out of that scene, but I think it's such an important one for like a teenager to experience as well. Unfortunately, a lot of teenagers, for a lot of different reasons, have parents who just refuse to see them as a human being. And I think that's something that a lot of teenagers have to go through, and that weird in between stage where you're like, you want so badly to be seen as an adult, but you're not. And so your parents still very much see you as a child, even though, I remember being 16, 17, 18 and feeling very grown up, but then looking back, I'm like, it very much wasn't. But I was still like, that's a very valid time in your life to be growing and experiencing things, and experiencing real things for the first time. Like I experienced some really big things from 16 to 18, some very adult things I shouldn't have had to deal with, and I may have handled it really well, but I was still a child. But I also needed people in my life to see the validity in that and be like, you may not be an adult, but you're experiencing things that are very real. And a lot of parents have a hard time with that because they still view them as very young. And so this conversation to me fills that void and fills that sort of conversation. So that's what it means to me. And also, like, again, like I said in the beginning, like viewing it very differently as I've gotten older too, I just feel like I feel so bad for Buffy here. I'm just like, man, like this is such a vulnerable place to be in, but also it's like this bubbling up for her. It's not like a moment where like it's a different conversation than it was in Innocence, because there's like this moment of like, I'm so scared to see what my mom's going to say when I tell her that I've like had sex for the first time. Whereas this one's different because it's like, there's this moment where she chooses to be the Slayer. And it's like, yes, it's like out of a, I have to do this again. But it wasn't like oh, like, Mom, what do you think? Like, maybe I'll try not being the Slayer. It's like, no, like, she has to choose to be the Slayer in this moment. And there's like 2 moments in this episode where she's like becoming the Slayer. And I view it as like this one, and then obviously the one at the very end of the episode. And they're very 2 different choices that she makes. And it's like one of them being like, okay, this is a burden, I have to do it. And then the second one is being like, this is the rest of my life. This is just something I have to do. And I don't know. I feel really bad for her, and like she's had to deal with so much already. And I think again, this show works so well because again, like we haven't gone through, all of us haven't gone through what Buffy's gone through, but there's so many moments where it's like, this is so well written that I can find direct correlations in my life that are so similar. And it's just, that's what good writing is for, because I'm sitting here feeling what Buffy's feeling and being like, it felt like the end of the world when I had to talk to my parents about any boy or whatever in my adolescence, or just anything that I was going through. It felt like that, you know what I mean? And I feel like it feels like that when you don't have as much of a safe space, not to air out my dirty laundry on here, but it's like, you know, it does feel like the end of the world if you feel like it's not going to be met with as much love and acceptance. So it does feel like that. But yeah, that's very long-winded. If anyone's listened to our podcast, everyone knows my tangents are not short. So.
I know, right? Wrap it up. I want Courtney to obviously speak on anything she has to say.
Go ahead, Courtney.
For me, obviously, I'm gay also, for those of you who don't know. So it speaks highly in my own personal life. Like Brandon said, coming out is like a huge thing, and this very directly correlates to all of those feelings, obviously. And same as you, Brandon. I don't even know if you and I have actually ever exchanged coming out
No, we
stories, and
haven't.
I
Oh my
don't know
gosh.
how that's possible. But
We're all about the present.
same as you, though. I was like kicked out of my house, and I had to go
Mm-hmm.
live with friends, and it was like a whole like thing before my dad, who was primarily raising me at the time, got to terms with it, you know. And I think like his response, it was met with judgment, but I was also met with like a sense of dismissal, like this is a phase, or this is like temporary, or I'm not going to be okay with this because it's just for right now and you'll get over it, so we'll cross the bridge when we get there. And I can understand a parent's viewpoint, being a parent myself now, that like that can cross your mind, but it takes a lot of like self-awareness to parent, you know, to begin with. So it's like one of you said earlier, like there's this sympathy you want to have for Joyce, you know, because you understand she's like in this overly heightened state of emotions, and she's really just trying to almost emotionally manipulate Buffy into doing what she wants by saying something so extreme. And I think that's what I've kind of learned to define that as. It's not oftentimes your parents actually mean like, get the fuck out of my life, get away from our family, you're this, you're that, and the third. It's a lot of them just trying to like pull you into their narrative. So when you are at your utmost refusal, to the point where Buffy is, because she doesn't have a choice, and that is what being gay feels like. It doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like, why would I make my life harder if it was a choice? Wouldn't then I choose to make it easier and not be this way, you know? So that speaks in volumes in this scene so much, to the point where she ends up leaving because her mom is dismissing the fact that this isn't a choice, like an outfit I'm going to put on, or, you know, the whatever, the shoes I'm wearing today, or whatever, something so simple. This is how I feel, and this is who I am. And you're telling me that it's take it or leave it, and I'm your kid, you know? So how does that make you feel, kind of thing? So it like really resurfaced all of those emotions. And it just reminded me of my own attitude, because when I had this exact conversation with my dad, I walked the fuck out of my house. Because I was like, I don't care anymore. If you want to take everything away from me about a choice that isn't a choice, then I'm out. You know, I got to go to a place where I can be seen, even if that means by no one right now. You know what I mean? And that's how it felt. It just felt like, so like, oh my God, I'm in high school again, you know, I'm having these like emotions and all this stuff. So again, like I was saying earlier, it's so huge that the show can be so otherworldly, you know, like, and stuff we don't deal with, but you still feel all that stuff that you went through in some way, or shape, or form. So yeah, I appreciate the writing of this show, I think, more than anything.
I've always liked that Buffy isn't the one, like, she doesn't shut the door. She leaves the door open. And it's like, Joyce, you're the one putting up the barrier, not me.
Yeah.
Like, Buffy leaving the door open is so symbolic of, you're free to come back into my life at any point. I'm not the one that is causing this barrier, that it's actually you, that it's up to Joyce to shut that door or come after her. And I just love that choice.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said anything better in that moment. That's the best. Like, that is so good. Yes. That's so true, though. I love it. She left it open for her. Like,
It's so symbolic, right?
that is very symbolic. I like that take. That's awesome. And that's exactly probably why they left the door open as she walked away versus pulling it
I never
closed.
thought
So,
about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to move along. At the hospital, they are discussing about Buffy going for the big showdown, Cordy wishing she could help without the dying, Willow fessing up that she wants to try again, the spell to cure Angel that they didn't get to finish. Maybe they can restore Angel's soul. Xander tries to argue with her over about how she's literally weak and in the hospital, but there's no use because she's made up her mind, and if so, they can help Buffy and maybe stop 𝑾𝒊𝒕𝒉 from even rising. Oz is confused because he's missed a lot, and Willow tells him to go with Cordy to the library to get all the stuff that they have for the spell, and he can get filled in on the way. Willow instructs Xander to go to Buffy and tell her what they are doing so maybe she can stall. He tells her to be careful and leaves. Resolve face. I didn't write that in my notes, but I was like, I have to say resolve face.
What a king. Oz going, the amount of blind faith and trust he has in Willow without knowing the exact circumstance.
Yes.
And
Oz is just
let's
always going to be
fair.
a flag.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, and also, like, let's be fair, like, Cordelia is not the best when it comes to relaying information, explaining. So it's possible she didn't even give him the full story, or even mostly like
No.
the partial
She
story.
gave her this
So
crappy, like, jolted,
exactly.
fucking choppy shit.
It's all through her lens and her narrative too.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, and her hair is just really bad today. And so we need to go get Willow some like chapstick and lipstick. And that's really why we're going to get all this like weed. No, but like the fact that Oz does all of this stuff, unquestioning, probably not even knowing the full narrative. I'm just like, oh, my king.
Like Leah said, fucking green flags from Oz 24/7.
Literally.
At the mansion, Giles still hasn't talked, and Angelus tells him that he can make the pain stop if he just tells him what he needs to know. Giles stiff upper lips him to fight the words through pain, to taunt Angel instead of give it to him, telling him,
in order to be worthy, you must perform the ritual in a tutu.
Giles ain't playing that shit.
This is Ripper right now. He's channeling his inner Ripper.
He's like, whatever. He's like, I'll die for the cause. I know that's what I signed up for, whatever I got into this. So this is that moment, I guess.
Yes.
And this pisses off Angel, and
he's like, chainsaw time.
He's like, somebody get the fucking chainsaw.
Time for him to lose an arm.
I love it because I wrote my notes. I was like, sit and spin. I mean, Spike coming in to tell Angelus not to lose his temper. And if and if he cuts Giles up, he won't get answers since he's not level-headed right now. And since he's level-headed right now and Angelus is pig-headed, giving him another option in the form of Drusilla, who comes in the room asking her if she wants to play a game.
Okay, wait. I have a question. What did Spike do with his wheelchair when he left the mansion? Did he like stash it in some like crusty, musty closet?
I have no clue.
He like puts it in a bush somewhere.
Crusty closet, but Courtney and me were talking about it last episode because he's pacing around the room before Drusilla comes to get him to start the ritual the first time, and he all runs to his chair to have a seat real quick. And I'm like, what? She's literally got vision to see into the future. She can't see that your legs work. Like, so I don't know what's going on.
Right.
It's answers that we'll never have answered in this show, but it's so goofy. At the school, Buffy enters the caution taped off library, avoiding Kendra's body outline on the floor, moving over to retrieve the bag under the table. Snyder coming in to confront her about being a criminal returning to the crime scene. She tells him that he knows that she didn't do it. The police will figure that out. Snyder telling her,
in case you haven't noticed, the police of Sunnydale are deeply stupid.
But it doesn't matter. She's proved too much of a liability for this school, him sucking in a big breath of air, happy to finally express to her,
these are the moments you want to savor. You wish time would stop so that you could live them over and over again. You're expelled.
But she looks down into the bag and whips out the sword to defeat 𝑾𝒊𝒕𝒉, looking over at him to snark.
You never ever got a single date in high school, did you?
Your point being?
Pointing it at him, walking by and out the library. And I love how he's just like, and your point? And she's like, this is the point. Like, she's pointing the fucking sword. I'm like, ooh. Once gone, he calls someone on his cell phone and leaves a message to tell the mayor that he has some good news.
So the script has multiple points in it that I didn't bring up, but like there are several points where they cut out Buffy saying, I need to get something and I have to go back for Kendra's sword. Like she mentions multiple times, like she has to get the sword, and they cut all that out because I think you can obviously see like what happens. They don't need to put it in, but like without giving spoilers and everything, the sword, we've talked about this a lot in season 7 with several episodes. It's a representation of something, and it's typically been a very masculine trope of like the white knight.
You can say it's power.
Okay, I can say it's power. Thank you. I'm like trying to dance around it as much as possible. But we talked a lot about this, and it's a theme that really spreads throughout the entire series about how like this is all about, right, Buffy accepting her power fully, and the sword is a huge symbol of that, and it's a huge symbol of her power, but also what is the Slayer power supposed to do is enact justice in a lot of ways. And this show is very big about there not being vengeance, but justice, and the very big difference between the two of them. And so Buffy going after Angel and stuff is her enacting her power and using her Slayer power and fully accepting it and wielding it. And like, it's just something that I wish I had kept note of for when I watched the rest of the series, because they're very intentional about the times that Buffy pulls out that sword. When she does, it's a very serious, like this is Buffy using her full Slayer power and doing what she was called to do. And it's usually something that's very grave and something that's very hard for Buffy to do, but it's like literally the burden of her
There's an
Slayer
episode
power.
Season 7 that reminds me of that.
Yes.
just
It's also
amazing.
season 5, it's really
Yeah.
big. Like there's a lot of symbolism to the sword. And so it really kind of starts right here. And the fact that this is her fully taking on that responsibility and ownership of that power and going and killing her lover with that sword is just so beautiful. And I love how they continue that through the rest of the series.
Yeah.
Well, it feels like whether or not this is fully accurate, but it feels like a masculine weapon. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
It
when
is.
she's
It
like
is.
holding it, when she's holding it,
Typically
you're
been
like,
that, yeah.
yeah. And then especially in an episode where she is taking on her responsibility as the Slayer and being the
Mhm.
Slayer,
Yeah,
I think
owning
it's
that.
very intentional. And I love that she's using like a sword rather than just a stake or a crossbow like she did in season 1 a lot. Like it's like a
Mhm.
lot more. I mean, I think we talked about this when we were touching on it when we first initially recorded it, but like they were really intentional with Buffy's weapons of choice in specific scenes in the first couple seasons. Her having crossbow in season 1 is very synonymous with how she's at in her Slayer journey. She doesn't want to be up and close and messy. She wants to just kind of like be far away and let it do its
Mhm.
job from afar. And then as time goes on, she's a lot more physically close and kind of taking up that space. And having that sword is really just like a pivotal shift because,
So
like you said, it's
personal.
like, it's like I'm getting messy with it. This is a power weapon and it's very intentional.
Yeah.
I will say, just to add on that in tarot cards, the sword suit is symbolism for mental clarity. It also is a masculine element. So that's where you get the vibe of masculinity coming from that. And that doesn't mean it can't be dualistic, like on both sides of duality for masculine and feminine, but it basically helps to channel higher decision, like revelations, breakthroughs, and mental clarity. And that's why I think Buffy's representation with the sword always comes at a time when she like knows she's in her power and things as such like that, because she's fully focused. Like the Ace of Swords and the King of Swords, Queen of Swords, they always do things with breakthrough energy. They have like the highest mental clarity that they could ever have. They don't have any kind of mental fog, anything that's like, you know, I mean, I say fog in that way, like no clouded judgment is there. They know fully what they're doing when they're using the sword. And that's what the sword in tarot stands for. So it's interesting to hear you guys talk about the swords. And then also on my side, you know, magical wise, on like the literal metaphysical world, that's what its representation is. So it's interesting how they pull in those elements.
That's cool. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
Yep. Back at the mansion, Drew is mending Giles of sleight and tuning into his mind so she can use her mojo to get him to talk, which she gains and does her trance-like shit that she did with Kendra to entrance him, covering his eyes to tell him to see with his heart. As she drops her hands from him, Giles sees Jenny before him. He gets excited to see her, really fucking excited, and just like
so
sad. Anthony does so well with this. Like it's just beautiful to see, and he is so happy to see her because he thought he lost her. She states that she will never leave him, but he is in denial, and she asks if he told Angel about the ritual, and he claims no, and that they have to get him away from 𝑾𝒊𝒕𝒉. He doesn't want to say more, but she expresses it's okay, that they will be together finally, promising him everything.
We'll be together. Finally. We'll have everything we never got to have. Never got to feel. Just tell me what to do.
Saying all he needs to hear, him admitting that they need to get him away again because he's the key. His blood, her shushing him and leaning in to kiss him passionately. The camera pulls away to show Drew making out with Giles, and Angel and Spike having heard this admission. His blood, he is the key, his life, of course. Telling Spike to kill Giles, but he's like, well, what if he's lying? And he's like, okay, good point. And they're like very happy that, you know, we're getting back buddy, I guess. They interrupt Drew, who is still over there making out with Giles, looking back, apologizing.
Sorry. I was in the moment.
Giles taking notice too in this moment that he has been tricked. I call this a beloved scene of mine because I really like the energy of her reprising her role as Jenny and coming back to do this, but also the fact that we get another expansion on Drusilla's power and talent to hypnotize people. It's also the vampire's thrall energy. Like her vision also gives her thrall a little bit of like a higher up than most of the intrinsic kind of vibe that you get from most vampires that have lived a long time that have these kind of abilities. She gets that, like I said, the uphand on that, but it also is kind of fucked up because she uses it as a weapon against him, and you know it's not fun stuff in that way. But I also really like the funny comment that she makes at the end. She's like, I was in the moment. It's like she just keeps making out with him long after she doesn't have to be there making out with him. So I'm like, bitch, what are you doing?
Tabby, that I was in the moment always reminds me of Becca.
Oh, God.
We have a sister. We have a lot of sisters.
Maybe don't
We
put
have a
this on the
sister.
podcast. I don't want her to get mad.
We've said it before on our podcast, so I think it's okay.
Have we? Oh.
Yeah, we have. We said it. We had a sister when she was really young. So she used to like have struggle with impulse control. I'm pretty sure she has ADHD undiagnosed. And so she would get like so like overly stimulated or like cute aggression, and she would like attack you, and she would like squeeze your cheeks or kiss you or something like that. We'd be like, "Oh my gosh, Becca, get off of us." And she'd be like, "Sorry, I had the moment."
And we could always see it in our eyes before it would happen. So I'd have
would,
to
switch.
like really kind of gear myself. I'm like, I don't know if she's gonna pull my hair or if she's gonna like kiss my
Sorry's the
cheek
moment.
or squeeze me super hard. I don't even know.
So Drusilla being like, I was in
So
the moment. I
funny.
was like, she had the moment, guys. She had the moment.
The only thing I really want to take from the scene, though, is like Courtney's thoughts on like having Jenny back for a moment, even though it's a deception tactic.
No, I hate this scene more than anything,
Me
y'all. I really
too.
do. I can't. And I think, unfortunately for us all, just because like we had our podcast name stolen, I'm gonna extra hate her character, I think, forever. So,
Valid.
sorry, but at the same time, this was like, I'll just go ahead and say it now that this scene is my weekly wigs, because
Mine too.
I
Mine
just can't
too.
with the like. I love Giles. He's one of my favorite characters. So
Yeah.
anything like revolving around him where like there's emotional discomfort, even in the slightest way for Giles, I'm instantly hating whoever's causing that for him.
Yeah.
She's also
So the
like
fact that
completely
this is
violating
like,
him too.
it's like re-traumatizing him. You're
Yeah.
re-traumatizing him. You're giving him like, it's back to the place where he's walking up the stairs in his apartment just to find Jenny dead, when he's so amped up and so excited, and so, you know, all the things that are happening in his head that are the complete opposite of reality. So it's like this in a more subtle fashion is happening again, but it's still happening again. And because it's like Jenny specific, I'm like, really? We had to go there.
Yeah.
Like, we have to absolutely traumatize this man to oblivion and beyond. Like, I feel terrible for him. So that's my take on the scene. It just reaffirmed my hatred for Drusilla even more. And I am just like, I don't know. I'm ready for her to be gone.
That's fair. And then his face too is so sad. Like when he realizes, I'm like, oh,
so sad.
Yeah,
I know.
he just stares off like, what have I done? And that's kind of fucked up in that way.
So bad. So sad.
All right. Back at Giles' home, Buffy stops by one more time to talk to Whistler, who is still there lingering.
Why?
Why? Because we had to get this one last
Why?
thing. We had to get the final statement that he makes.
Okay, Whistler. All right.
And she's wondering what he meant about the sword, about it not being enough. He tells her that Angel's the key and how his blood will open the door. And I'm like, you couldn't have said all this earlier, but I guess Buffy left. And only his blood will stop the vortex and close it too. She needed to go see Whistler so he could tell her everything that was at stake, even though technically she knew that the vortex would be closed by, like, because Giles has already told her like how to stop this, the sword and all that stuff. But I guess she didn't know the components
she already
of
knows
the
and we
blood
already know. So
and
it's
all of
like,
that.
okay, get
So,
to it.
one blow will send them both back to hell. He recommends that she kills Angel before any of that occurs to make it easier on her. And she claims for him not to worry about her. He tells her it's on the line here, kid. And she states she can deal because she's got nothing left to lose and exits. Whistler saying to himself, wrong, kid, you got one more thing. And that's why.
as if she doesn't know that though. Like,
Couldn't you have said that in the first scene that he was in, not this one?
Thank you.
We're like nitpicking this amazing episode that pretty much is like completely tight from back to front.
It's the only things that we can nitpick at, though, to be quite honest. So it's fair.
If this is the worst, you know what? Whatever.
We got it. Daybreak hits and Buffy's approaching the side street to the mansion, walking up with the sword as Xander hops out from behind the bushes, spooking her. She hands him a stake in exchange for his rock weapon, telling him to get Giles and get out, and he's not there to fight. She can't protect him. She's going to be too busy killing. He calls this a new look for her saying the sword's a present for Angel. Him stopping her, stating, Willow, she told me to tell you. Buffy asking, what? Him pausing before stating,
kick his ass.
I loved this because when we were recording it, and you'll see it in our reaction take, but Courtney was like she got frustrated. And I was like, yes. I didn't know if she was going to side with Xander or be like, oh, whatever is happening. So it was fucking great. Before I talk about like what I have written and stuff like that, and y'all give y'all's feedback on it, like, Courtney, what do you think of kick his ass? Petty jealousy or deeper protection?
You know, I anticipated the opposite, obviously, but I did still get frustrated just because, like we've said, with the Whistler thing, with all the other things, I feel like we're at the point in the episode where I'm like, we're wasting a lot of time with dialogue, and I'm just ready to actually see some ass getting kicked. So it's like, let's get there already. So that was my take on it. I was like, please so someone said it, let's go do something. So I'm just like, I'm ready for the end. I want to know what's going to happen. I haven't forgotten that there's this potential of like Angel's soul being, like resurrected or whatever. So it's like, I'm conflicted, but I'm ready to go kind of vibe. That's kind of where I was at this moment.
So telling Buffy to kick his ass when he knew Willow was working to restore Angel's soul, that wasn't a slip up. It was a choice. He didn't do it just because Angel was dangerous. He did it because he wanted Angel, not just Angelus, gone for good. Mm-hmm. And this is my take on it, by the way, people. And sure, and honestly, most people, and sure, maybe from a practical standpoint, Angel dying would have guaranteed he couldn't ever lose his soul again and hurt people, sure. But that's still not Xander's call to make. Buffy deserved the full truth so she could make that decision herself, and we know she would have made the right one because she does. The lie, though, it was selfish and it wasn't about protecting anyone. To me, it was about control, and it's one of those times I can't defend Xander as her friend. I do see, like I said last episode, where if Angel wasn't in the world, then Angelus could never wreak havoc again. That's fair. And if this argument came from anyone else, we could view this immensely different, but it doesn't. It comes from Xander. And Mark Fields, Passion of the Nerd, everybody that takes a deeper take on it, quickly to summarize it, always says the lie, which has been come to known as the lie in the Buffyverse, a source of much contention. Simply put, Willow has made the decision to try the spell again and asks Xander to tell Buffy. Buffy trusts Xander and expects the truth from him, especially given information that might affect her tactics in battle. And Xander decides he knows better than either of them. Nobody knew how the battle would play out, and Xander's decision actually limited Buffy's options. Whatever his motivations for that option, that is simply wrong. He cannot elect himself commander. That's Buffy, and he is her subordinate. And I always like that whole, like, I read it in his book and stuff, the whole like military concept of like commander in chief and like all that. It's very important. Like, Buffy's the one that's supposed to be making this decision, and I can't help ever falling on the wayside of the fact that Xander does this for the selfish reason of he's hated Angel from the beginning. Yes, there is the flip side that everybody can turn it to and say that, if Angel's gone, that makes it better. You know what I mean? He could be gone, but also it's coming from what we said last episode, his argument with Buffy in the library. You just want your boyfriend back and to erase Miss Calendar's death. That's not what she wants at all. If you have the chance to reinsult him, he's a force of good. He can do good in the world. We just know what we can't do this next time around. So there's a solution to that problem, but he still wants Angel gone because he wants Buffy to not have him. That's it at the end of the day.
Well, the brilliant thing about this episode is the fact that Xander's trying to control the situation. And obviously things go out of his control because Willow does end up ensouling Angel. And then Buffy still makes the right decision. So it's like Xander trying to force it, either from selfish reasons or because he's like, I don't think Buffy will make the right decision, which is a huge, that's the biggest argument I hear constantly, is people being like, well, people who argue for Xander are like, oh, well, if Xander hadn't done that, Buffy might not have made the right decision. Like, Xander had to do that so Buffy would have been like in the right headspace to actually kill Angel, which first of all, Buffy was always in the right headspace. But second of all, it caused Buffy to have the most painful outcome possible. And she still went ahead and did it. So it's like, the thing that bothers me the most is that Xander took choice away from Buffy, but he also, like Mark Field talks about, how Xander put a rift between Buffy and every single other person in the group.
Yeah, because the way Willow is thinking like Willow and everybody else isn't on the side of Angel as
and
well.
And she does think that. We know that. It's canonical, And then you also have Giles here, like he's undermining Giles. So like Xander is just trying to, and this part makes me really mad, but this watch through, it was his words at the end of the episode that drove me even more off the edge when it came to that, because it was more, I'll talk about it when we get to it. But every time I watch this, I always think, oh, it's not going to be as bad as I remember it. And it's always worse. It's always worse.
Same. It boils in my blood every single time, the same exact way, as if it's fresh from day one. But now I have all this other information. I'm like, fuck you even more.
Yeah, exactly. She kind of thinks, like you said, Sarah, she thinks like all of her friends are on the same boat. So she's like, oh, okay, so no one's really on my side. I feel alone in this. So she goes in this battle in a different headspace, and I think that's honestly another reason why she also leaves at the end of the episode too.
Absolutely,
her friends is because of that, like, that community that she has. Oh, actually, I was about to give a spoiler, so I'm just not gonna say that. But yeah, that's the perspective I have.
For sure.
Yeah. The fact that she goes into this final fight feeling like she's been abandoned emotionally by her friends because they're like, go kill him, go kill him, go kill him.
Totally.
And not understanding the emotional impact that this takes on her. No wonder she leaves.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So inside the mansion, Angelus is restarting his ritual, which this time I guess he wants to be extra and say all his words in Latin because he's not doing it the same way he did last time. At the hospital, Willow, Cordy, and Oz are starting their ritual also. Angelus slices his hand with the blade, stating he will be free, and so will they all. Buffy comes in from the side entrance, walks to one of the vampires standing by 𝑾𝒊𝒕𝒉, and slices his head off in our first ever beheading to 𝑾𝒊𝒕𝒉 in the series. Turning to face Angelus, calling out,
Hello, lover.
I don't have time for you.
You don't have a lot of time left.
Coming on kind of strong, don't you think? You're playing some deep odds here. Do you really think you can take us all on?
No, I don't.
Spike getting up from his chair to hit Angel with a bar in the back, knocking him down and swinging on him repeatedly, happily saying, painful, isn't it? Drusilla, not pleased, rushes him as Buffy takes on the other vamp by 𝑾𝒊𝒕𝒉. Xander coming in to hit the vamp, by the way, with his casted arm. Like, I'm just going to say, like, that's probably had to have hurt. I don't know if that's like a bad on their part thing, but
he's so brave, Brandon. He's using his casted arm. Like, oh my gosh. Well done, Xander. No, okay. All right, Xander.
And as he comes in, obviously that vampire knocks her over into that chair and breaks it so she can get her steak for later. But he runs into the back room and starts to collect Giles. Spike and Drew are battling as he passes her. And he tells her that he doesn't want to hurt her, getting our iconic statement where he punches her and he's like, well, it doesn't mean I won't. Willow is also well on her way to chanting out her magics at the hospital. In the room with Xander and Giles, he finds him and he believes that Xander is not real due to the tricks that were cast on him earlier. Xander untying him and questioning him, well, then why would they make you see me? Giles agreeing at this point. And this part's always so funny. He's like, all right, well, let's go. And it's funny. Courtney laughed out loud at that point too. Cool shots to see Drusilla fighting Spike as well too, because we haven't really gotten to see too much of that this season of her actually fighting. We saw the 2 seconds with Kendra, but it was nice to see her battling Spike, and it's her foe, but it's also her partner, so it's very interesting. Angelus finally getting up off the floor, standing and walking over toward 𝑾𝒊𝒕𝒉, grabbing the sword as Buffy stakes her vampire for an off-screen slay. Angelus pulling the sword out of the stone successfully, and Buffy is officially too late. Drusilla mesmerized. Ooh, here he comes. I hear her voice.
Her squeals.
It's so squealy. I couldn't even do it. My voice started cracking. I was like, yeah, there you go. As Spike grabs and pins her from behind. In the hospital, Willow is reading out the spell and looking sluggish, pausing in between her words, looking faint, but managing to get some of the words out. We cut back over to Buffy grabbing her sword off the ground, pointing it up to face Angel wielding the sword.
You almost made it, Buff.
It's not over yet.
My boy 𝑾𝒊𝒕𝒉 is about to wake up. You're going to hell.
Save me a seat.
Fucking iconic. And here starts the coolest sword fight you've ever seen, and probably between two people. The choreography for this is amazing between the two stunt workers, Sophia and her husband, and Sarah and David. Learning this is so cool, and they are so evenly matched. It seems we've never seen Buffy handle a sword, but you can see that the training with Giles has been of benefit, because obviously we see that off screen. We know he teaches her all the things in weaponry, and at the end of the day, she's a slayer and a badass and is rocking this shit. Love when she hops down off the ledge before he swipes her feet to that one little piece, and the callback to Kendra when he slices her shirt on the same side, and like she just looks down at her cut arm and she doesn't be like, that's me only shirt, because it's, you know, she has a whole wardrobe. And it's not just swords, they are kicking and punching all in between this, not to mention the revisitation of the Massacre score by Beck is playing, and it's highlighting the intensity that we're getting throughout all of this fight. We flash back over to Willow, who is about out of it. Oz and Willow worried because they think that she's going to drop out and her words aren't coming out. Her breathing intensifies and deepens as they ask if she's okay, when suddenly her head extends upward and something enters her, taking host of her vessel, and she bows her head down to the table, no longer speaking the ritual in English, no longer herself. She's speaking another language like the elder woman we saw cursing Angel initially.
Are you okay?
Is this a good thing?
Hey, speak English.
Oz and Willow starting to wake out. Did you know what was going down whenever that happened, Courtney?
I mean, I figured, because we saw it. We saw just like the episode before where Angel met his fate in that regard. So yeah, I knew. It just was shocking, I think, because I didn't expect like a full on like closely mirrored like exorcism like moment happening. So yeah, that took a turn, but it was really interesting.
I love the callback to that episode where I don't remember which one it was, where Giles was warning Willow to not do magics, and then he says you can open the door, and he doesn't talk about the fact that like he talks about how like you're going to channel something and then open the door, and you literally see that happen here. So it's such an excellent like kind of tidbit for later, because you're looking at this and you're like, wow, this is a huge empowering moment, but you're also going, like Cordelia and Oz being like, is this a good thing? And I love that it sets up the next whatever for you to be kind of like, oh, there's going to be consequences for this for sure.
Yeah, definitely. To me, it's just a really fascinating element to show that she is evoking the spirit, and like we know her as Buffy's metaphorical spirit in the show as well. So the fact that she gets like the first time she ever really like starts to execute magic, a literal spirit comes into her vessel and helps her get through this. And I think if anything, it like you said, we're kind of saying it kind of builds up the power that we futurely see of Willow, which is going to be really cool too. So
yeah.
Angelus kicks Buffy out into the courtyard of the mansion, starting to gain the upper hand on her as Spike manages to choke out and incapacitate Drew, who has, no air to be choked out from. So I don't know what's going on there.
Nope, never made sense.
She's faking it.
But he picks her up and carries her out. And then I love how he looks through the courtyard and he just like stops for a second and he's like, God, he's going to kill her. And then he just shrugs and then continues onward because he's got what he wanted. He's got what he wanted. He's out of there. Like he could have dropped Drusilla. She's unconscious and like went out there and like popped Angel in the back really quick just for Buffy to get back on her feet. But then we wouldn't have got this next moment. One of the coolest shots is the next scene. Behind Angel is the beautiful wisteria bathed tree. I had to point that out because wisteria is my favorite flower. And I noticed this time around that it's trickling everywhere. I was like, have I always noticed that? And like, this is why the wisteria is my favorite.
Gorgeous.
Like, gorgeous. Buffy backs up, sitting against a small patch of sun along the wall. Angel questions her.
That's everything, huh? No weapons, no friends, no hope. Take all that away, and what's left?
Buffy closing her eyes as if defeated and ready to die. Angelus ramming the point of the sword towards her face when she catches the blade between her hands, opening her eyes and looking back, answering him.
Me.
Thrusting the blade and it's just fucking great, right?
Yeah.
Everybody droops. I can't talk because I'm trying to say too much at one time. Like this is like that moment when everybody like jumps up and claps and like is really like I see this posted so much in the fandom as like one of the biggest Buffy moments ever.
But also like contextually, other than it being such a good moment just in general, but her mom just kicked her out and she thinks her friends are not like on her side in this moment. She feels emotionally alone too. Like it's not just like, I'm sure her friends are helping her, yes, but she feels like alone in this experience with Angel and Angelus and then with coming out as a Slayer. So her saying me here is being like, at least I've got myself. So it's not just like him threatening her life and being like, well, I can beat you sort of thing, which is still cool, but there's that whole added layer. So it's like, oh, like you really root for her because it's just so well done and you're like wanting the best for her. So you're like, oh, like, yes, like take your power back. You got it, you know?
And that's exactly what the best part is, her taking her power back. Like you said, everybody's gone out of her life in her eyes. And she's like, well, I still have me. So she's like, I'm going to fucking finish you.
And it's such a payoff because in Becoming Part 1, they did such a good job of showing Angel and Buffy as understanding each other in a way that nobody else does because they both have similar callings in a way. Like obviously Angel's not a Slayer, but the way that he's been ensouled and all this stuff, they spent that entire time showing the parallels, showing why Buffy and Angel have such a love and a connection for each other. And then to culminate that in this episode with now Buffy has to kill that person, that one person who has probably known her better than anyone else on top of all of the other things that have happened. And for her to get back up and say me is so incredibly empowering. Like these two episodes, I mean, really the whole build up to this moment, but these two episodes just do such a good job of just laying the foundation and the groundwork for this moment. And it's just, there's nothing like it. There really isn't.
Yeah. Oh, we see Spike haul ass out of the garage, breaking through the doors and speeding off with Drusilla as Buffy kicks Angelus back inside the foyer by 𝑾𝒊𝒕𝒉. Her speed with the sword increases in this moment too. She's like, wah, 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 wah. Like, it's just like she's really like getting on that level. Like, I love it. I don't know. It's like the fending that off that she does is just amazing here, and she's on her shit. And he really can't like beat her back at this point after this moment, like they just had in the courtyard. And I like it too because in this moment she like slices his hand and it knocks his sword out of his hand. And then it's also showing that the spell is already connected to him because that table rocks forth on Willow's hospital bed. Everybody usually tends to think like it's her shaking the table and stuff like that, or like the energy channeling. It's the fact that Angel got whipped at the same time, and it's like almost like a direct connection to like saying like, oh fuck, like you're messing the magic up, like don't kill him before we're trying to finish it type thing. And then this is also whenever she's saying the conclusion of the ritual. Buffy kicks Angelus to his knees, rotating the sword in her hands as Willow says, the orb of 𝘆𝒆𝒂 glows, disappearing, the spirit within Willow seeming to leave her, and flashing back over to Angel's eyes, taking the light of the orb again, re-ensouled. He cries out in pain as Buffy whips the sword back behind her, ready to swing and decapitate him, but pausing in this moment. Angel pants, wipes tears from his eyes, and looks up to her, saying,
Buffy.
Her confused, he goes on speaking as he gets up to meet her at eye level, their love theme cueing in, and y'all know that this scene would not hit if the Close Your Eyes theme wasn't playing here. It adds the emotional weight of this moment and deepens Buffy's final act so much. This is where we all start to choke up before like Sarah cries. And just for Courtney to know, like the Buffy Angel love theme is called Close Your Eyes. That's the name of the score, which is appropriate.
And how it just parallels Darla telling Angel to close his eyes when she changed him. Like it's just, it's so good.
Perfect. Angel asks her what's going on. Where are we? I don't remember. She lowers her sword, realizing he's cured, stating,
Angel.
He takes notice to her arm cut, stating that she's hurt, and she steps towards him. And I've read a lot online that this is the moment where she trusts in him. She's like, wait, this is my Angel back. He cares about me. He's like paying effort. And he pulls her into his arms for a hug. He grabs onto her and expresses it feels like he hasn't seen her in months. And you feel this too, because like as he's saying everything's so muddled and he's like kissing her shoulder and pouring out tears of joy, he just like is visibly shaken, like by just like seeing Buffy again. Like he doesn't understand what's been happening. And obviously we know the clarity is about to come in probably by the time he gets to hell, like it did the last time in last episode. But like it sucks for him.
So true though.
Buffy's happiness is seized when she looks behind him, hearing the stone moving as 𝑾𝒊𝒕𝒉's mouth lowers and the portal's vortex begins to grow. And she pulls away from him as he asks what's happening, and she shushes him, telling him not to worry about it before passionately giving him a deep kiss. Mirroring Darla, as Sarah said in the previous episode. He does, and she shakes her head slightly, and it's so sad when she does that. She's like, I don't want to do this. And she takes in what she has to do before kissing him one last time, that final goodbye kiss. She rears back and sends the sword through his torso. He cries out as his eyes burst open in shock, extending out an arm, reaching towards her as she backs away, him calling out Buffy. Lights flash, the portal begins to pull him in as she watches him fade out of reality, horrified at what she's done. The portal closes, Angel is gone, and Buffy stares in shock. Slowly breaking down as she starts to pour tears, Sarah McLachlan's Full of Grace begins to play as Buffy leaves sobbing. And the breath that Sarah takes here, as if the lump in her throat and the connection in her mind to what she's done is so amazing. Like Sarah acts this so beautifully, and it's timed so well with the music, and she didn't have that to play off of either. They just did it justice, and Sarah nails the scene. And that gasp of air when she sucks in her tears, that's when we all break right along with her. If you haven't been crying, then as soon as she breaks down, you start to cry, and we're all released and can sob with her. We transition over to her crossing the street, walking up to her home. We cut into after Buffy has already left and Joyce is coming up the stairs, moving into her bedroom to find that all of her stuff is gone. Her room is empty, but a note is left behind, and she sits on the bed reading it, crying to herself. Out front of Sunnydale High, a new school day starts as we see Xander, Giles, Cordelia, Oz, and Willow channeling Spike's previous energy in a wheelchair. I say that because Willow's now chilling in the wheelchair. Them speaking on the fact that they haven't heard from Buffy, but obviously the world didn't end, because check it out. I always got count on Oz for that melodramatic kind of like just random monotone
Those one-liners.
shit, yeah. Stating that they went back to the mansion and 𝑾𝒊𝒕𝒉 was dormant, but it was empty. Willow states that she thinks the spell did work because something went through her. Cordy adding,
𝑨𝒏𝒈𝒄𝒄 did that cool glow thing.
Well, maybe it wasn't in time.
Xander offering perhaps she had to kill him before the cure could work. Oz thinking in that case she'd want to be alone. Willow hopeful maybe it did work and they are wanting to be alone together. Cordy saying, well, she has to show up for school sooner or later. Willow agreeing, hoping that she will be here in a while as they turn to walk inside. Before I do the final part of the scene, Sarah, what do you have to say about Xander in that moment?
So the script had a part that they originally put in, which I think softened it. So I'm glad that they didn't do that. So he says, maybe it wasn't time. And then he says, if he did pull the sword out and she had to kill him, maybe he was already dead when it happened, which makes it seem like, oh, like Xander's trying to like
That's not any
soften
better,
what
Xander.
happened. No, it's not any better, but I like what they did where they just had maybe it wasn't in time and she had to kill him before the cure could work, because I feel like that's truly Xander right there. Like we kind of get to see a little bit more of the ugliness. And I always forget about this part because there's so much going on right now and everybody's like bringing their input in, but like I really kind of honed in on it. He's hoping she didn't succeed and that she's off mourning. And he knows that if she did actually kill Angel, like he's hoping she did, that she's devastated and is off somewhere. And that's exactly what happened. Like, what a dick move.
Damn.
Like, I just don't know how people can defend him. I'm sorry. I just feel like the episode does such a good job of showing that Buffy would have done this regardless of Xander's interference or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate that. I hate it so much. Ugh.
I agree. It's one of the things we don't like about Xander. Courtney, what do you think of the final scene of Buffy killing Angel?
Obviously, it just goes right back to what we've been dealing with this whole time, which is that their love is like the most tortured, impossible seeming kind of love. And it's like the one you want to somehow have this like remedy of sorts where you just want it to work for them because nothing else is ever going right for them. And to have it end this way with like the both things being true, you know, where the curse is lifted, it did work, Willow did her job, but at the same time the other part of the reality is also true, so it doesn't eliminate the choice that Buffy needs to make, which obviously the goal of this working would have been for Buffy not to have to make that choice, you know, so for her to ultimately be faced with it anyway in spite of basically all the things are happening at the same time, it's sad, you know, it's just really, really sad. And it just kind of like sums it up in the exact way that it began, which is very tortured, very just tense and almost like miserable, you know, like it makes you feel bad for them. There's way more times throughout their dynamic as lovers or whatever else that you feel bad for them. You don't spend as much time being able to connect with them as a couple because they don't have any good parts as a couple, you know, like everything is so complicated. So it's like, as sad as it was, there's almost like a relief in this weird way. And it's like, not in this moment, but for further down the road, or at least you're kind of hopeful, like maybe because Buffy lived and maybe because she does seemingly set off onto new horizons, however you want to put it, maybe this really means this time that after all that she's learned and after all this bullshit, she can actually step into her power, step into her duties and her responsibilities, take on what really that means, and have more of the, I guess, like a guard up or what have you, to make sure that going forward, maybe she doesn't find herself in these positions. Like it gives you a weird breath of fresh air for her because she's still living and she's still moving forward, but it doesn't make it any less sad, you know. But like I said, I feel like their relationship to me up until this point has been more sad than it is happy. Like you just define it with all the moments you cling on to, like maybe this is it, maybe this will be happy, maybe this will end well. So when it inevitably doesn't, you're almost not surprised, you know, because that's the name of their game kind of thing.
Yeah. I think people calling them like tragic lovers is like the perfect term because like stuff that's tragic is more than it just being like oh, a bummer or like that's sad or whatever. It's like the dangling of happiness and what they want and then ripping it away as soon as they get a glimpse of it. And that's happened several times with them. So especially this episode where it's like the last oh my gosh, like, again, you're going to do that again. You're going to give him back to us, right? When she has to kill him. It's so cruel.
Yeah.
I'm assuming Leah's not coming back.
Yeah.
Probably fed up with it and stuff too. So letting everybody know now that Leah is out of here.
Yeah,
We
Leah's
appreciated you at the
internet
beginning.
died, so or else you'd be hearing her yell about Xander for sure. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, for
waiting
sure.
for-
So
There's
sad that
Leah.
she missed it.
She didn't
Yeah.
say anything about Xander. Yeah, it's because she's not here. That's the only way she did not say anything about Xander.
Well, after the gang walk inside, the camera pans around to across the street where Buffy has been watching them, a bag on her shoulder and her sad overalls. She walks off down the street as we follow behind her before seeing her on a bus that's traveling down the road, passing a road sign that states, "Now leaving Sunnydale. Come back soon." We fade to black, and here endeth season 2 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Could you imagine if the show had gotten canceled after season 2?
It would have been awful.
That would be horrible.
Right.
And that's why they set up
God.
every end of the show
Like
like it was going to possibly, because they never knew if they were going to be renewed in time. So they
Yeah.
always wanted to wrap it up. But this would have been like, no, like if
This
anything,
would have
maybe
been
the next
cruel.
season, like, yeah.
Mhm.
We'd be talking about that one like niche vampire show that like no one's ever seen that was like so good and we wish it could have continued.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what are these people talking about?
Yeah, literally.
Themes and metaphors for the show. Obviously, we have coming of age and sacrifice. The title Becoming is about transformation, not just for Buffy, but all key characters. Buffy steps finally into adulthood by making the hardest decision of her life, which obviously is killing Angel to save the world. Metaphor for maturity is in here as well, doing what's right, and it's not always easy or emotionally satisfying when that happens. We also have the loss of innocence, Angel's re-ensoulment, coming moments before Buffy has to kill him symbolizes the cruelty of life and adulthood, that sometimes you don't get closure on things. And the idea of growing up means living with trauma, regret, and irreversible consequences. And then we also have the burden of identity as well. Buffy's dual identity as girl and Slayer comes to a head. She's forced to become the Slayer in totality, costing her her home, her friends, and her love. And I did want to note also how she physically leaves Sunnydale at the end, signifying emotional exile and detachment from her former self. I'll dive in more into the metaphor as a whole in our wrap-up of the season, just loosely based and stuff. As for Buffy fun facts for this episode, the 𝑾𝒊𝒕𝒉 monster at the end, instead of saying 𝑾𝒊𝒕𝒉, it says,
"Oh, I need a hug."
This is the one time that it was used as a variation for Mutant Enemy Productions. Christine Sutherland, who portrayed Joy Summers, read the script for the season 2 finale, Becoming Part 2, in her car, like hot-ass summer day. She was engrossed in the story and she couldn't help but stop and read it until she reached the emotional conclusion where Buffy leaves home. Sutherland mentioning that she sat sobbing after finishing the script, highlighting the powerful impact that it had on her. Becoming Part 2 pulled in an audience of 4.2 million households on its original airing, and it is also in the top 20 credited most watched Buffy WB episodes. Our final fun fact, Joss Whedon commented Becoming Part 2 has the big sword fight at the end, which was something he insisted on because you need the big sword fight, and the actors had to really train beforehand with the stunt coordinator, and the doubles did the bigger panned out shots. This was something that they made time for because they knew it was going to be special, whereas they don't normally have time for these big fights. And he noted that he was surprised at how good Sarah was with the sword, knowing David would be out. Also noting Sarah does a lot of the work herself and has real grace with it and was beautifully beholden. Noting also that he didn't know when they cast everyone how good they were. He just knew that they were pretty, they were good, and they were right for the parts. But each of them exhibited such extraordinary depth, and he was happy with his overall decision in casting. And then I remember Sarah's not here because this is also post-production, Brandon inserting these facts because we were running out of time. Sarah had made the point.
Which, again, like... Every time I listen to Joss talking, it's hard now listening to him speaking with the filter of what we know behind the scenes. And it did sound a little like iffy when he was talking about how they expected David to be good at sword fighting, but not Sarah, which from everything I've heard, I don't understand why that is the case, because from what I've heard, David is incredibly clumsy and Sarah has like a black belt. So I don't know. It was kind of interesting. I was like, I don't know if he's just saying that because he's a guy versus a girl, but yeah, it was interesting.
I thought that was a really good thing to bring back from Becoming Buffy's podcast content that they released, because I did not know that part, whereas I knew the previous statement about the sword fight being a big finish.
But regardless, we get into our final slays.
Final slays.
Final slays, Becoming Part 2. What's you guys' quote for the episode?
Mine is definitely Giles and Xander's interaction when Giles is like, no, you're not real. And Xander's like, no, I definitely am. Like, why would you be seeing me? And he's like, good point. Let's go.
I love that part too. I have two, and both of mine were kind of funny, but one of them was when Spike was like, billions of people walking around like Happy Meals on legs.
Like size.
And then the other one is when Joyce was talking to Buffy about Kendra's death, and she was like, did she explode like that man out there?
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
There were so many to choose from.
Yes.
This was like the worst episode to do this because it was like, can I say all of it?
Absolutely.
Like the
I
whole
know.
script.
Well, it's like we can go like really intense and do like the whole coming out scene, which would be my personal favorite. But then it's like I loved the whole Joyce and Spike moment in the living room where she's like, have we met before? And he's like, oh, you know, you like hit me
in the head.
Yeah. Like, and get the hell away from your daughter. She's like, oh, that's right.
Good callback moment.
Yeah.
I have like a few because like it's hard to not choose, but I always like the interaction of Buffy coming in and being like, hello, lover, and you know that I don't have time for you, you don't have a lot of time left. I just love her confidence and knowing that she's there to finally take care of his ass, even if that means going along with him. So I just like that there. She's like, you know, like, and then that rolls right into like save me a seat in hell. And then I also like whenever Spike is excited about Drew bagging a Slayer, and I like just the specific part where he's like, though from not your perspective, I suppose, like that it's not a good thing because he catches himself
for the first time.
And then obviously just like the whole me statement after he tells her that she has nothing left. That's just iconic to me. So that's my overall quote for the episode. But did you guys give a shining Slayer to?
I mean, it's Buffy.
Has to be Buffy.
Buffy,
Like,
yeah.
who else? You know?
Yeah.
I would say, like, if I'm going to have, like, a second, I'm going to say Oz for unquestioningly obeying Willow. And
Willow's my second up.
Not you know, questioning Xander and like going to bring the stinky herbs to the hospital and going off of half of the information, you know, like
yeah. All right, cool. I forgot we all said Buffy unanimously. I was like, wait, what about you, mate? I did put an honorable mention into Jenny and her yellow floppy disk because without her, this would have never happened.
True.
And I like to think her spirit is at rest, knowing everyone is safe and that her hard work paid off for those that she left behind. So honorable mention to Jenny. Which one of y'all said the Wiggins earlier? You said, was it Courtney? Or y'all both had the same wig.
Giles, or like, Giles and Drew. Absolutely not.
Yeah,
Absolutely
can't do it. Can't do Drusilla's like manipulation, illusion. Like, it's just too far.
What about you, Tabby? What was wigging you out?
I think other than like the lie that really pisses me off every time, and a like less serious note, but more of like an irritation, is like anytime I can tell when the writers are writing something that is just kind of like, why did we have to put that in there? Like in the hospital in the very beginning of the episode when Buffy is like talking to Xander. And then he like covers her up, and then she's like, "Oh, that was like equally like copping a feel, right?" And I'm like, "Okay, why?" It's just so 90s sometimes. Like, there's occasionally some lines here and there where I'm like, "We don't need like okay, like
could have gone without it."
Yeah, I know, but that's just like me being nitpicky. It's like really not that serious, but yeah.
That Slade moment. Mine, I'm just going to start with that just because out of the whole episode, that Slade moment to me is once again the me statement. Take all that away and what's left, me. Like, that's Slade to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is that you guys as well?
That's what I had. I did have a funny one for a Slade moment, which was when Spike like saved Buffy from getting arrested by taking out the cop, and then follows that up with like grabbing his cigarettes and like smoking them. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I just fell in love with
They're
Spike.
like, we can't have him be too good. We got to show that he's bad. Pull out his cigarettes, guys. Smoking's bad.
Great.
Yeah. I feel like I had two more niche-ish moments. Not as niche, but like the whole like, hey lover. I loved that part because she's like using his terminology
from
that he uses her against her. Yeah, I loved that because it's like, it's not like in a wounded way. It's like a hello lover, you know? Yep. And then when we see Spike and he pops up and he says like, hey cutie, I'm like, I just love both of those lines. They were great.
Nice.
Wait, Brandon, you didn't say what your Wiggins was.
Mine is Xander and kick his ass.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Just because of that. Thank you for calling me out on that. I would have forgot. But
no, I wanted to know. I was like, wait.
That was my wigs. That's the only thing that really ever. I mean, there's other things I probably could choose out, but I like that. Just always sticks with me. That's the big
completely
one,
justifiable.
Yeah. All right, then. So I am going to go back up here and read out my burden and my becoming thing, which I think this will be a nice way to kind of close out the episode before we close anyway. So Buffy's Burden and Becoming is what I entitled this.
In Lie to Me, I spoke about Buffy's Burden, how our journey from Season 1 into Season 2 mirrors the energy of the Three of Swords tarot card. 3 blades driven into the heart, symbolizing sorrow, loss, and heartbreak. The first sword was her death at the hands of the Master, and not just the physical death, but the emotional aftermath, the shattering weight of being brought back to life only to carry more pain, and then to crush his bones with her own hands. It wasn't victory, it was survival with scars. The second sword came in Lie to Me, when her past crush and friend Ford betrayed her. She was forced to choose between stopping him or honoring his dying wish, and in true Buffy fashion, she did both. She let him have his end, and then she bore the weight of it. She buried her friend twice. And now here we reach the third sword, the final piercing of the heart in this early chapter of her story. She doesn't just kill Angelus, the monster. She kills Angel. She saves the world, but sacrifices her heart. It's in that moment, as the sword enters his chest and the portal closes behind him, that Buffy breaks. This is the moment where Buffy's burden is no longer just pain. It becomes transformation. Because here she realizes the Slayer's path was never just about killing demons. It was about carrying the weight of impossible choices. It was about standing alone, as Whistler said, when there's no one left to stand with you. But in that silence, something changes. Slaying stops being a punishment. It becomes her purpose. Not just a job she was forced into, but a calling she now understands. She realizes that being the Slayer isn't about winning every fight. It's about enduring. It's about standing in the ruins and still choosing to protect the world, even if it means walking away from it for a while. Buffy runs, but not from who she is. She runs because she knows now she's not just a girl with a destiny. She's a woman who has paid the price to earn it. And this story, this grief, this strength, and this sacrifice was never about pain or slaying vampires. It was about becoming. By the end of Becoming Part 2, Buffy makes the ultimate choice. She doesn't just fight a monster. She doesn't just lose the man she loves. She kills him. Angel, soul restored, memory intact, eyes full of love, returns to her in the very moment she must send him to hell to save the world. And she does it. With a kiss, with tears, with a whispered, "Close your eyes." This is the cost of being the Slayer. This is the moment that Buffy truly becomes herself. From the beginning, Becoming has been about transformation. Angel became Angelus. Willow became a witch. Giles became a father figure again in his grief. And Buffy? Buffy becomes the Slayer, not by winning a fight, but by losing everything and choosing the world anyway. That sword through Angel's chest, it's not just an act of survival, it's an act of identity. Buffy proves here that being the Slayer means more than strength. It means sacrifice. It means choosing duty over desire. It means choosing to protect the world, even when the world asks for your heart in return. This isn't just about killing a lover. It's about killing the hope that he could have been what she needed. It's about letting go, not just of Angel, but of childhood, and of the fantasy that love will always be enough. This is where Buffy grows up. This is where Becoming stops being metaphor and starts being real. Buffy walks away in silence. No applause, no recognition, no comfort, just grief, and the quiet, unbearable knowledge that she did the right thing, and no one will ever truly understand what it cost her. That's the price of becoming. Because sometimes the moment you become who you're meant to be is the moment you have to lose everything you were afraid to let go of. And that's that. I know, right?
Poetry over here.
I've been writing that shit out and trying to figure out how I wanted to word that and throwing out so many edited stuff since I did Lie to Me. So that took forever to get to.
Yeah.
But all right, everyone, thanks for listening. That brings us to the end of season 2 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and with it, the end of another season of Revamped. We'll be back in just a couple of weeks with our official season 2 wrap-up episode, where we'll dive deeper into everything we've seen, felt, and cried about, because let's be real, this finale hit hard. We want to hear from you, though. How did you feel about Xander's kick-his-ass moment, about the unbearable weight on Buffy's shoulders as she's made the ultimate sacrifice, and what do you think this all means for her journey moving forward? Huge thanks to Sarah, Leah, and Tabby for joining us for the finale. I'm so glad you were all here to close out the season with us. Before we go, where can everyone find you to keep up with Becoming Buffy?
Yeah, we are finishing out season 7. We're on Instagram, Becoming Buffy Podcast, also on TikTok. You guys can look for us to listen to our full episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and pretty much everywhere that you listen to your podcast. So yeah, check us out.
And just to let everyone know, after our season 2 wrap up, we'll be taking a little summer break, just like Buffy, wherever she is. But don't worry, we'll be back with the season 3 premiere on Friday, August 8th. So go ahead and mark those Jenny calendars. I hope you won't miss us too much. I truly appreciate all of you, your support, your messages, and your love for Buffy and for Revamped. I can't wait to return and keep this journey going. So until then, we'll catch you next season right back here in Sunnydale.
I told you. I'm a vampire slayer. Well, I just don't accept that. Open your eyes, Mom. What do you think has been going on for the past 2 years? The fights, the weird occurrences. How many times have you washed blood out of my clothing and you still haven't figured it out? Well, it stops now. No, it doesn't stop. It never stops. Do you think I chose to be like this? Do you have any idea how lonely it is? How dangerous? I would love to be upstairs watching TV or gossiping about boys or, God, even studying. But I have to save the world. Again.
No, this is insane. Buffy, you need help.
I'm not crazy. What I need is for you to chill. I have to go.
No, I am not letting you out of this house.
You can't stop me.
Oh, yes, I... You walk out of this house, don't even think about coming back.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Buffy on Revamped. Remember to join us next week for a new episode release as we continue our journey through Sunnydale. We also would like to hear from you, so share your thoughts. Discuss with us your perspectives on this or previous week's episodes by following us on Instagram and sending us a DM at @revamped_rewatch podcast.
Or by emailing us at revampedrewatchpod@gmail.com. Additionally, we will be choosing one of your messages to shout out in an upcoming episode release. And if you happen to love abandoned places but prefer them vampire-free, check out Echoes of Elsewhere, an urban exploration podcast, where I interview urban explorers about the eerie spaces they uncover, anything from haunted schools, forgotten mansions, and tunnels that probably don't lead to the Hellmouth. From history to mysteries, tips and tricks of the trade, I dive into all things Urbex. Subscribe and listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Until next time, the Earth is definitely doomed.
This podcast is dedicated to the Buffyverse, to its fans, and my sister, Tiffany Dawn Pearson.